Hello everybody, welcome to this week's bonus podcast. I'm Michael.
I'm Gemma.
And we are going to be talking about Jenny Connor Bradley. She's Bradley again, isn't she? Officially Bradley. She's back and she's gone. And we thought...
She's back and she's gone.
Bradley is back, but she's in Tenerife. She's sunning herself. She's forgotten about Weatherfield already at this point. But we haven't forgotten about her. We are going to be spending the next couple of hours talking about all our favourite Jenny bits. And I know, we did a character profile on Jenny earlier this year. I can't remember when it was, back in January, February time. It's going to be forever incomplete because it took us right up until then, not knowing that, as we did back then, that sadly we'd be saying goodbye to her by the end of the year. So this is going to kind of serve as a all-encompassing, all you need to know about Jenny in alphabetical order, A to Z fashion, much like we did with Gail when she left, who is, some might say, equally iconic as Jenny. We've been having a lot of fun coming up with what letters we're going to assign to each letter of the alphabet. You'll never believe what's at Z. And we're going to be just talking a little bit about what we think and having a bit of a learn about her. Gemma, are you ready to get started?
I'm doing A, aren't I?
You're doing A.
A is for Alan. Alan.
Yeah, let's talk about
Alan
him.
Bradley.
Alan Bradley, Jenny's dadley. This is a character that you've only seen small amounts of, isn't it?
I've seen him pushing people around.
Pushing people around.
And falling over in front of a tram.
Getting splattered by trams. Yeah, Alan Bradley was in the show. He appeared just a couple of weeks after Jenny. Jenny's first appearance on the show was the 6th of January 1986, and he popped up a couple of weeks later. The story was that Jenny had been living with her mum, and then she got Pat. That's correct. Well
dead.
Done. You remember from last week? She got hit by a car, and she was taken into fostering by Jenny. And
no, who was?
No, sorry, Rita. And then Alan Bradley came along a couple of weeks later, and he was a little bit estranged, and they spent the next a couple of weeks kind of getting to know each other again, and they had a bit of a tempestuous relationship. It wasn't an easy father-daughter relationship, as you might expect from somebody who's been separated their daughter for so long, but also because he was a bit of a git, wasn't he?
He was a git, but he also liked the bachelor life, like all gits, and he liked selling his air conditioners around the country, and he didn't have time for kids, just like old what's his face with a pipe.
Oh. Sherlock Holmes?
No, he hated his kids, that guy. No, who's the guy?
Harry Hewitt.
Harry Hewitt.
You're thinking of. Yeah.
At least he didn't put his kid in an orphanage.
So Alan, he left Pat because he was a bit of a player, to be honest.
Because she didn't appreciate air conditioning. Do you know what?
Clearly
Can
not.
I just say, Alan Bradley does not get credit where credit is due for the visionary idea of selling air conditioning in the UK in 1978.
Yeah, we didn't need it.
He was before his time.
Everyone
would be knocking his door down now. I bet at the time they're like, this is very eccentric. Who needs air conditioning?
So Alan kind of had to really try hard to get on speaking terms with Jenny.
I think A should be for air conditioning.
Well, maybe it's both. Maybe it can be both. We've got a few sensible ones, a few silly ones, haven't we? The main relationship that we saw grow over that time was with Rita as well, because he ended up going out with her. But it was he wasn't a nice guy, was he? He wasn't always faithful to her. He slept with Gloria from the pub, Gloria Todd. He slept with Carol, who was a client of his. So he was just a bit of a nasty man. And then he ended up strangling Rita one day. I think it was on Jenny's 18th birthday, or at the party for her 18th birthday. She came home and found her dad with his hands around Rita's neck. And that does kind of go some way to souring things, doesn't it?
I had a bouncy castle for my 18th birthday.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks, eh?
It's just a different way of doing things.
Rita had found out that he had tried to remortgage the house under the name of her dead husband, Len, right?
Yeah.
And so when she confronted him about it, he had a bit of a temper on him, and that's what Jenny walked into. And then he ends up going to prison. But I think the case was that he was sentenced to 6 months or something. But because he'd been on remand in prison, he got let out straight away. So it was a really brilliant moment where you find out what he's been sentenced to, and then you see him walking out of the prison, and he is hell bent on revenge. But I think the ultimate Alan Bradley moment that everybody remembers is the tram, right?
Yes.
If you know anything about Alan Bradley, it's the tram.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jenny was not happy about this. Well, Jenny took Rita's side, Alan's side over Rita.
Oh, yeah, but before the tram, yeah. But he was...
He manipulated her and made her think it was Rita's fault, turned her against Rita.
Yeah.
And then she got really upset at the funeral and blamed everyone else for hounding her dad to his death like he was some kind of northern Princess Diana.
His death being splattered by a tram in Blackpool after he'd tried to drag Rita into a car, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it was this was like one of the most iconic early Corrie deaths. I think when I first started watching Corrie, it was a death that everybody talked about and remembered. And there's been so many dramatic character ends on Corrie these days that I don't know whether does it still stand up. I think it does.
It does because it's also funny, isn't it?
It wouldn't be funny if it happened to you in real life. But...
No, but if you you wouldn't want to die by being run over by a tram. No. If I was hit by a tram, I think I'd drag myself somewhere else. Like maybe to get run over by a cooler car.
Just so it wouldn't be so embarrassing.
Yeah. Also, here's a question: who had the worst coat? Rita in that scene or current Becky Swain?
Becky Swain, I don't know. It's a
both really iconically terrible at fashion.
Yeah. So Jenny's relationship with Dad was up and down over the years, and we have kind of pondered on the podcast before about what that means for the other men in her life, because she quite often went for the older man, didn't she? And was there any way of kind of daddy issues there? I don't know, looking for a father figure. I don't know, but I liked how, despite the fact that he was such a nasty piece of work, he'd managed to twist around his finger a little bit, and she was very loyal to him, defensive of him. And I think she, after he died, she squirreled herself off to university and locked herself in a college dorm room for weeks, as far as I remember, and it was Rita who was able to coax her out in the end. But not a great relationship, but definitely a really memorable start to the character of Jenny. And the funniest thing of it is, well, I find it quite amusing at least. But
go on, tell me the joke.
Mark Eden, when he was brought in, the character Mark Eden who played Alan Bradley wasn't brought in to be a villain. They kind of kept him on the show for a bit, and they couldn't figure out what they wanted to do with him. He wasn't really going anywhere. And one of the writers say, "Hey, hang on a minute, how about we make him a bad guy?" And it kind of all took off from there. And Corrie back then, bad guys weren't 10 a penny like they are these days. So it was really...
There's at least 2 villains on the go at any one
Exactly. So he's a bit of a prototype big Corrie villain, which the role later filled by Richard, Pat, and so on.
Barbara Knox did speak about Alan Bradley and Rita's relationship when we saw her at the conversation audience with Coronation Street, and she said, she got so much mail about that relationship and people learning about domestic abuse, and it was quite. It helped a lot of people understand better what their situation really was.
Yeah. And I think because they didn't have so many stories like that those days, it didn't feel, probably, to the people at the time that they were being force-fed issues.
No, I doubt they even used the concept of an issues-based storyline.
It was a good bit of drama, wasn't it? Yeah. Sadly, Mark Eden, who later went on to marry Sue Nichols, didn't he? Mm-hmm. That's not the sad part. That's lovely. But he died in 2021, and Sally Ann Matthews, who plays Jenny, of course, was the one to lead the tributes in the press, and she said, "I love this man so much. Thank you for being the most wonderful TV dad, teacher and friend."
Aww. He wasn't evil in real life.
He wasn't evil, he was lovely. Probably. I don't know, I guess he was. Right, should we move on to the next letter?
Yeah.
Next letter is B, and a lot of you who knew this episode was coming have correctly guessed that B stands for Blackpool. And there's obviously a little bit of overlap with Alan in Blackpool as well. But that wasn't the first time that Jenny had been seen there. So Blackpool is, an hour and a half away from Manchester?
Is it really that far away?
I don't know, but I'd say about an hour or so. Okay. And we've done the journey between them, and it used to be the place that Corrie would semi-regularly stick all the cast members on a coach towards and film a lovely episode there. One of such episodes was in 1988 in August, when a whole coach load went up there, including Jenny, and she and Martin and Curly and Shirley ended up spending the day on the Blackpool Pleasure Beach. But it was not such a pleasurable return trip in 1989. Not that Jenny went there, but that was when Alan was hit by a car. But I think Jenny's most famous trip to Blackpool was the one that was 9 years or so ago, wasn't it? The 2016 trip to Blackpool. What are your memories of that?
Wind.
Very good.
Pirates.
Who?
Pirates?
Pirate Jack, yeah.
Pirate Jack.
This was Kieran Bowes, one of his first episodes in Jack's new form, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this was because I think was this Johnny? Johnny kind of goes with her.
Yeah,
Jenny and Johnny go.
Yeah, Sally and Tim had agreed to go. Well, I think Tim had surprised Sally with a trip to Blackpool. I don't think Sally was particularly thrilled by it, but the thought of Blackpool, the memories of it, brought up a lot of buried trauma for Jenny.
I thought you say buried treasure.
Oh no, that's where the
And
pirates
Jack would
come
love
in,
it.
isn't it? Yeah. No, she'd never been to Blackpool again since her dad had died there, and Johnny convinces her to maybe just if she want to get a bit of closure on it, and they go up together. But yeah, lots of wind.
Yeah, it's very windy in Blackpool along the seafront, and the hair was not tied up, was it?
I love that. They stood opposite the Strand Hotel, didn't they, eating an ice cream, and Jenny's hair was blowing all over the place. A shot that you have.
I did.
Mimicked.
My hair also.
We
did
went
that.
to Blackpool and we took pictures of Gemma with her hair all over her face, just to
saw the
live
hotel.
in Jenny. We
saw the blue
hotel.
plaque that's there to commemorate the death.
Yeah.
They'll never live it down, Blackpool.
No, I know. Well, this was great. I remember it appearing in the press beforehand because they filmed it end of March, I think, in 2016. I think it was like Easter time, and they ended up showing it in Britain's Got Talent Week, maybe. I might be getting my dates wrong. I can't remember, but yeah, I remember it coming, and it must be so exciting to be out on the town somewhere because there were so many members of the public in these shots, weren't there?
Yeah.
And then they had them standing outside the Strand. They had everything that was going on with Sally and Tim, and then the big climax, I guess, was, as you say, Jack, and he nearly got hit by a tram himself.
Yeah, what an idiot.
But Jenny saved him.
Yeah,
do you remember?
So this is the same Jack who now only has one leg. It's like he's been trying his whole life to lose a limb somehow, and he eventually got there, and now it's not as good as he thought it was going to be.
Getting hit by a tram doesn't cut it, then sepsis
do you know what?
will do.
Even great, his pirate outfits now are even better than they were back then because he's only got one leg.
Yeah, give me peg leg Jack, can't I? Anyway, I really did enjoy that episode, and Sally spoke about it and said, it was brilliant. We had such a good time. We were blessed with the weather. It was lovely and sunny. So many people watching us film, but they were so respectful about what we were doing. There was no shouting out or mucking around between takes, but it was pretty intense. Yeah, she's talked a lot about how it was a really, really hardcore, long day of a shoot. But she said the idea of the scene wasn't to create a new iconic moment. And I don't think particularly that trip has gone down as iconic.
No, but I think that what she said is true. It's about paying homage to the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they've even... I love how they've got the plaque outside the Strand Hotel that says Alan Bradley the Sham was hit by a tram here. And, Corrie used to do loads of location shoots. So lots of fairly momentous events have happened out in the wild, but there can't be many of them that have got their own blue plaque.
No, I doubt it.
So it's clearly something that Blackpool's very, very pleased with and proud of to be associated with. And I think, was it a few years ago that the tram was up for auction or something? Do you remember? It was
we didn't
painted
get it.
different. No, we did not get it. I don't think we could do with a tram. I think having a gravestone in a garden is bad enough. I don't think we've got quite room for a tram, have we?
Think you get in trouble?
They nearly had one more trip to Blackpool. Well, Jenny nearly did for the 10,000th as well, didn't she?
Yeah, they were going to go to scatter Dennis Tanner's ashes. But they didn't make it, did they? They ended up in a car park instead.
Yeah, it was Jenny and Rita's idea, and the whole gang came along. They had a lovely time on the trip. But anyway, so that's Blackpool, really. Definitely a very memorable location for Jenny. Not always for the right reasons.
See, it's for car crash. And this isn't Jenny's love life. This is her... when she was younger, in 1986, at the end of the year, she was fancying Martin Platt. I don't know why, but she fancied him, and she eventually got him to go out with her. He was older than her, and for some reason back then he thought that might be a bit of a problem. The age gap.
Well, he wasn't saying that when Gail came along a few years later, was he?
He wasn't saying that when...
He was only about, 3 years older than her or so, but I think she was still 15 at the time.
Well,
maybe
he
she was
also
6.
didn't care about it when it was old Katie.
Oh no, of course not. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I think he just kept going after that age bracket. Anyway.
No, I think maybe Jenny was 16 and he was 19 or something. But yeah, she eventually is able to wear him down, partly for his chauffeuring services.
Yeah, well, she's very glammed, dressed up in a white satin dress. She's got an updo. She's going to a talent contest.
She looks amazing. There's a black and white picture of her in that scene where she's down in the reception of number 7, and yeah, she's got her hair. It's not kind of like beehive-ish, but the black and white picture that I got does make it look like she's got a crash helmet on before she steps out of the house. But Rita comments on it and says, "What on earth are you doing?" But yeah, there was a singing contest because Jenny was a bit of a singer, wasn't she?
Yeah, like Rita.
Just like Rita, she was in her foster mum's footsteps.
Fiery gingerhead temptress.
Yeah, well, she sang for Alec Gilroy. Yeah, exactly. She sang for Alec Gilroy once as well, didn't she?
Well,
this wasn't it.
This didn't go as well. I mean, it all went okay. That but went okay. She gave Martin a big kiss because she was so pleased with herself. But then when they tried to leave, the car won't start. So she's like, "I'll sit in the driving seat. You push it." So it does work. And then instead of stopping and letting him in, she just keeps. Well, she keeps going, didn't she? And then
yes.
she speeds around. She drives through the country lanes and she runs off the road and down an embankment. And I can't remember. Does a car roll over? It does. Dramatic.
It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
It goes over and it lands up on its roof.
Yeah.
For 1986, this was high level stuntage.
It was, and they end up, or Martin ends up in hospital, and she's like, "Oh, so it was you that was driving." And then Alan has a go at Martin, and so Jenny has to come clean about it. Jenny is really good at running people over or crashing cars and then getting her boyfriend or husband to say it was him.
Yeah, because this is what happened later on, much
Liz.
later on with Liz, wasn't it? Christmas Day 2018, when Jenny gets sozzled because she's convinced that Johnny is having an affair with Liz, and she runs her down. And I remember that being, that's not a very Christmas Day-ish kind of thing to do. And I'm always such a Jenny defender, and every time Jenny does something that's somewhat morally dubious, I'm like, "Oh, come on, Jenny, don't do that." But I do love her for her naughtiness. But yeah, she just, bottle of vino, I think it was, or vodka, I don't know. Was it? Is she a vodka drinker or gin? I can't remember. But yeah, smashes into Liz.
It's white wine that Jenny drinks normally.
Okay. And Johnny ends up taking the rap for that as well. She just flutter her eyelashes at him.
Well, back in the day with this car crash, Alan forces them to confess, but Rita doesn't press charges. I don't know what she was pressing charges for, but it all goes away in the end, so she's fine.
But yeah, I think probably that is Jenny's first ever stunt, but not her last, because there was a very, very big, incredibly memorable, impressive stunt that we will get to much, much later. But if you haven't seen the clip of Jenny and Martin having a car crash, it is really quite a good one, I suppose.
Shame he didn't die.
What a minx, Gemma. If the Platt dynasty would not be what it was had Martin ended his life there, Jenny could have been responsible for quite a turning point in Platt family history there, couldn't she?
Jenny's had a good old go at quite a lot of iconic guys on the street.
I know she has. She is really minxy, isn't she? She's very yeah.
I don't think you can call it minxy, because I think it's just a function of being a character on Coronation Street. Just shacking up with everybody.
Right, so car crash, that is C. And at D, we have got death stare. The Jenny Bradley death stare, Gemma. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's where she stares at people and everyone's scared of her. And this was mostly this was online, although Corrie did officially acknowledge this in a social media post in January 2017. They said, "Careful, Aidan, there's a Jenny Bradley death stare if ever we've seen one," because he's up to no good. Yeah,
Jenny suspected that he was having an affair, which he was with Alia at the time. I think it was Alia or Eva, I don't remember. But
there's something about Jenny Bradley death stare. It doesn't work with Jenny Connor, does it? Jenny Connor death stare.
Well, there's a lot of things that don't work with Jenny Connor.
Bradley. What is it about that name?
I don't know.
She's great, isn't it?
She's got a Jenny Bradley just feels a bit naughtier. I think Jenny Connor to me has got a bit of respect and a bit of clout to it. Whereas Jenny,
it's got a strong. It sounds very strong, doesn't it? Like Bradley.
It's funny because a death stare. Everyone's got a bit of a death stare. I think most characters in Coronation Street have glowered at somebody once or twice over the year, but it really took off with Jenny, didn't it? Especially in her early days. And there's so many scenes where she just turns around and gives someone such a stink eye.
Yeah,
She's
it's
brilliant.
because I think it's because for a lot of the time she was a bit of an underdog, and so really all she could do is give people evil glares. She didn't do a lot, you know. She was kind of on her back foot a lot of the time. And then when she became a landlady at the Rovers, you know, you can't fight people or be rude. You can just glare at them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Much as she
Her
can
standing
do.
behind the bar with Daisy sometimes and just passing comment through a death stare. That's all that she needs to say, really. But I remember there was one. I don't remember what the context was, but maybe she's talking to Liz, and she's got this smile painted on, and then the character that she's talking to, let's say it's Liz, turns around and walks out the Rovers, and then Jenny's face just magnificently melts into this
Jenny Bradley
death stare. It was the best, and it was the thing that Corrie gifs are made of.
Yep.
And I think Sal's got a little collection of Corrie gifs, of Jenny Bradley death stare gifs, some of which were ones that I sent to her. I seem to remember back in the day, Sal, you know, she loves a good tweet, doesn't she? Does Sal?
Oh,
She's not as active on there as these days as much as she was.
Most people aren't on Twitter anymore because it's too horrible.
Yeah, but I remember there being one year towards, you know, the beginning of her tenure of Jenny, and she said, "Oh, I need to figure out how these GIF things work because everyone's posting GIFs on Twitter." So I think I helped her out with learning how GIFs work, and I made a couple of GIFs of Jenny death stares at her, and then there's one where she's sitting in her tabard in the factory, and she turns around and gives this brilliant one. It's the best, you know. Who else? Paddington Bear, Jenny Bradley. Level pegging, I say. You would not want to be on the receiving end of one of those withering glances, and it's
Absolutely
one of my
not.
favourite things about her. So there we go. D is death stare. Let's go on to the next one. Is it you? Are you doing E?
I'll do E.
You do E.
Emberton.
Yeah, Scott Emberton.
You wouldn't be... If you don't know who this is, don't be upset because this is a bit obscure, I think.
It's kind of
Scott
obscure,
Emberton.
but it's also kind of fairly recently. It seems like it's a story that's not really stuck in people's memories for good reasons.
So Scott Emberton was a lodger in the Rovers in the mid-2020s, and Jenny, he stays at the B&B, which is what would you call it? Initiative.
That was one of her initiatives. We'll talk a little bit more about her initiatives when we get to a bit later on in our list. No. But yeah, the B&B was something that she thought, oh well, you know, we're an inn, we can get a little bit of extra money by having some lodgers come and stay with us, and one such lodger was Scott Emberton, who seemed like quite a nice chap,
normal
first,
guy. But then
yeah.
Johnny sees him and he's immediately like, I need to go to France. Let's go to France. You and me, let's go to France right now. And she says, I'm not going to France.
As you do mid-2020 when COVID is ravaging the country. It's just like fire, drop everything and go abroad. But COVID didn't really hit Coronation Street in quite the same way as it did the rest
they were
of the
mercifully
world.
spared, weren't they?
All they had to do was wear masks and then they were pretty much fine for a bit of it.
Right, Jenny doesn't go to France, so Johnny goes alone for a few months. But when he comes back, we find out what it was that he was trying to hide, which is his secret past with Scott Emberton. When they were younger, they committed a crime together, and Was
it a bank job? Was it? I think.
Well, they hit a security guard with a getaway car.
Yeah.
And again, another car. There's a lot of car accidents in Jenny's life. I think maybe she was cursed as a child.
She could even curse her future husband decades before they met.
Time is a funny thing, isn't it? So, Scott has not. Unlike Johnny, he hasn't left his criminal ways behind him, and he wants Johnny to rob the bistro with him, and Johnny doesn't want to. So Scott's like, I know what I'll do to stop Johnny from telling the police about all this, is I'm going to take Jenny hostage at gunpoint in the back of the Rovers. Not the last time she's going to get taken hostage in the Rovers, but the first.
It's the perils of being the landlady, I suppose. I mean,
well, yeah,
even Annie Walker had a couple of heavies come into her bedroom that one time, didn't they?
Her ridiculously long ceiling light.
Yes,
Remember that bit of string?
Yeah.
Where did that go? I'm not sure. I think it was attached to God's big toe. That was. Anyway, Johnny comes in and manages to talk Scott around, and he gives himself in, so Jenny doesn't die there.
Yeah.
Which is good, isn't it?
Why do you think that story doesn't sit well in people's memories quite so much?
It didn't. It felt like I'm not a big fan of things that happen to a character before the show. I think that's been used so much now.
Tell you what, these days they'd have a flashback to it, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They'd have used
whole
Richard
episode.
Hawley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really care what they got up to when they weren't in the show. Because you can make anything up, can't you? You can be like, oh, do you remember when you used to run a koala sanctuary in Australia and then you killed them all because you don't like koalas? Okay, it was just made up though, isn't it? That didn't really happen.
Yeah. I think you're right, and I didn't really... Scott is not particularly memorable a character. He was like, kind of stock bloke.
Stock bloke, yeah. Middle-aged bloke.
Yeah, and also, of course, this was kind of the beginning of the end for Jenny and Johnny as well, and I did love them as a couple, and having it revealed that Johnny was a bit of a crim and Jenny breaking up with him partly over it. Yeah, it's just not sat well.
Well, it was a little side quest, wasn't it?
Little side quest for Jenny Connor. I guess she wouldn't be the person she was now if that hadn't happened. But yeah, Emberton Izzy. I think we can swiftly move on from that one. So shall we do F? F stands for foster mum. This is Rita. Lovely Rita, who was not the first foster daughter that Rita had, but she was the best, wasn't she?
Well, Rita's like a mother hen collecting little orphan chicks, isn't she? Because she ends up she doesn't get the credit for it like Roy does, but she kind of does collect the odd waif and stray, and Jenny, like you said, was her most prominent one. And being in a relationship with Jenny's dad, obviously, it was a bit of an up and down, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, especially when he would... he strangled her, like we said earlier. Do you remember there was also that episode where he tries to spring a wedding on Rita?
Yes.
And she's like,
surprise
not bloody
wedding.
likely.
Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody involved in the marriage.
Yeah, not so good. But the relationship between Rita and Jenny, although that has also had its ups and downs, is really one of kind of the lingering, just lovely... familial relationships on the show, I think.
Rita's always giving Jenny advice, and actually if she'd listened to Rita a bit more, she might have had a slightly easier life, I think, at times. And obviously Sally Ann Matthews and Barbara Knox, who play Rita and Jenny, have had a long career working together, and that it's clear that they really have a lot of respect for one another.
Yeah.
Sal was always talking about how lovely it is to work with Barbara Knox. They really enjoyed doing that 10,000 episode together because they had that scene where they were reminiscing. A lot of the stuff where, that's really good between those two characters are reminiscing scenes, aren't they?
That is probably up there as one of my favourite Jenny and Rita scenes ever. End of the 10,000th episode.
We're still reeling from the trauma.
Yeah, or of Dennis
Tanner's
Tanner
being
scattered across the car park. Yeah, Rita goes into the Rovers and she's looking around, and all the clips of the characters from over the years speaking are echoing in her ears. There's Mavis, there's Dennis, of course. There's Bet. And then she sits down, and Jenny comes in, and Rita's like beside herself with just in tears, and she says, "I couldn't have wished for a better daughter." It was
that was very sweet,
so lovely. And then she kind of talks about, she says, remember all the people that worked here, Jack and Vera, Annie, and now they're all gone. And then she says, but they've left something. It's in these walls. It was a little bit cheesy, but I think from Rita.
Rita's was absolutely sentimental.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't
Except
remember,
when it comes to money, she keep that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't remember who wrote that episode, but that was such a lovely speech. She talks about she says some people might be ready for the knacker yard, but I'm not yet, which is obviously a brilliant Elsie Tanner reference as well. Yeah. I loved that scene, and any time where Rita and Jenny have a heart to heart is so heartwarming and cockle-warming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad that they ended up going on bad terms, which I had been a little worried
about.
Not going on bad terms, sorry, which I was a little worried about that they wouldn't. Are there any other other Jenny and Rita moments that stand out to you?
Well, she was quite instrumental in when Jenny came back, and then came back again, wasn't she?
Yes.
Because Jenny came back in 2014, right, after a long break.
Yeah, 21 years or something.
You tell me, because I can't remember.
Well, she we'll talk about that, come back later, but then when she gets sectioned for having a little bit of a kidnap drama with young Jack, she comes back about 7-8 months later, and it's Rita who
I
makes
remember this
contact
bit.
with her.
Yeah, she finds her in a grotty bedsit and she rescues her and gets her a job, and she's the one who's responsible for her permanent return to Coronation Street in 2015.
Yes.
But I was talking about in 2014. This is when it's Rita's birthday, isn't it? And
oh yes, you're right. It was because Jenny comes on the show and she sees Kevin and they go into the pub.
Yeah, this is the blind date thing.
Yes, they go to the pub and then Rita's away in Cartmel visiting Mavis, and so she thinks it's safe to go boozing, and then Rita ends up walking in on it, and Rita's not happy to see her for reasons that we'll learn more about later. But yeah, there was quite a lot of bad blood between Jenny and Rita pre her 2014 return, and it took a lot of work from Jenny to show that she is a good one and she's worth forgiving.
Yes.
And bless Rita, she can hold a bit of a grudge, but she's got a lot of forgiveness in her heart as well. I mean, she has to be, with having worked with Mavis and Norris over the years. You've got to have some level of tolerance there, haven't you?
Yeah. And she's also kind of responsible for fostering a relationship between Jenny and Gemma, because she took Gemma under her wing a bit, and then she had that thing where brain tumour stuff.
Yeah. When Rita was in hospital with a brain tumour, then Jenny and Gemma had a fallout about something, and there's a little scene in there where Rita was trying to get them to batter heads together, basically, and get on for her sake, if anything else.
And really, it never really felt like it had been developed. It was developed properly. Jenny's behind the bar, Rover's team, but I do think that there was a lot of good character stuff done, like foundationally, with her and Gemma, and Daisy, and then you got Glenda, and then Sean and Ryan a little bit. It's a shame that they never really turned into a proper, pub squad like I wanted them to. Yeah. But
and we now
it's good that Gemma was part of that.
Not got the chance to see Jenny and Rita as a cabin squad either, have we?
No, just a little bit.
Just a few little scenes there with Jenny with her sweets, but it's I'm glad that they've left on good terms. It'd be nice if some of the writers could, add in a few little references. Not that Rita appears in the show that much these days, but it'd be nice to maybe hear an update from a postcard, because you do get that sometimes, don't you? Like, oh, so-and-so's had a baby now, or what have you. I'm not that I'm predicting that particular development for Jenny, but who knows?
Or Rita.
No.
You used to get telegrams during wedding scenes, but now it's just social media updates.
Yeah, well, like Sal talked to me about in the interview when I spoke to her last week, Rita knows how to use FaceTime, so maybe, hopefully, they'll still stay in touch, because it's such a loving relationship, and I think that the chemistry between the two actors really does go a long way into helping that, and the fact that they're
very believable as that real deep bond. Yeah,
which is what Jenny really needed, because to lose your mum at 15 was she, 16 again, I can't remember, is a horrific thing, and Rita coming in and basically saving her and being the mum. Well, Jenny was kind of the daughter that Rita never had in the end, and it's just lovely stuff.
Lovely stuff.
I wish we'd seen a bit more of it in recent years, but you can't have everything. At least they had that nice scene in the final episode where they're standing outside the Rover's door, and Rita's like, "Oh, don't say that, Jenny," and Jenny saying, "If I see you again." Love it, absolutely love it. Barbara is a gem, and we even had in the going back to that audience with Coronation Street stage show a few weeks ago, they had Sal delivering a message to Barbara, didn't they, on a video screen? Mm-hmm. Absolutely perfect. Loved it. Let's do G.
Is it me?
Let's say it's you. I've lost track already.
G is for ginger. Because that is what
the colour of her hair
Jenny has. Sally Matthews, her Instagram status is at the moment that girl with the ginger hair who plays bingo. I
think Sally Ann Matthews is very proud ginger.
She should be.
I remember there've been a few.
They're rare and beautiful.
They are. She's got amazing hair.
I know, she really has fabulous hair. There's a lot of people on Coronation Street, the actresses, who have excellent hair that I would be quite happy to take. But I think that Sal's hair is probably the best.
Yes, it's just lovely gorgeous. And bouncy and shiny and
lovely.
Yeah, there's been a few times on Twitter where she's hit back at people who've referred to her as being strawberry blonde. So it's definitely a ginger, and I've seen her come to the fence of some fellow gingers as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, obviously the most important thing though that's come out of this is that she was our long-term winner of the Flamin' Nora Award in the Conversation Street Awards.
2015 to 2022. Now, if only we kept it going till this year, she would have had a 10-year streak.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
nobody else was really going to get that award.
No,
I'm sorry to say. And who's going to have it? Who would have it now? Who's the spiritual successor?
There's very few left, isn't there? Very
Glenda
few
went
gingers.
red. She died at dark red, but it wasn't the same.
Well, back in 2012 when we started the podcast and we did our first Conversation Street Awards, there were a good number of redheads on the show.
Yeah, there were. That's why we
there?
even had the category.
And Coronation Street has got a bit of a history with iconic redheads.
Yeah.
Elsie Tanner being the first.
Yeah.
But I think in 2014, which was Jenny's return year, I think it was Fizz.
Yeah, Fizz.
Won it that
we had
year.
Chesney and Craig, I think, were nominees. I can't remember who
Kathy's been a nominee at some point, but there was tons of them. And alas, sadly,
dying breed.
Yeah, they are a bit of a dying breed, aren't they? Sad. But we decided to retire the award in I think it was 2022, like you said, and we got Sally Ann Matthews her very own hand. She's the recipient of the only physical Conversation Street Award. We made up a little
trophy. Well, hang on, no, she's the only one who's got a trophy. Because Charlie D'Amelio actually does have a certificate.
He got a certificate. That was a Bobbins Award, though, wasn't it?
Oh, that's true.
So, So
not anyway, as good.
No, I think it does help the look, and having Jenny and Rita there together as two flaming redheads, even though they're not related by blood, it kind of makes them a bit of a team, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, it really does.
Yeah. So there's only so much you can say about being ginger. So I'm happy to move on to the next one if you like.
Go on then.
H stands for Henry. This is Henry Newton, and I will take any excuse to talk about good old Henry on the podcast, won't we? And
he was a big part of the story of Jenny and Johnny being landlord and landlady of the Rovers.
Yeah, because he was supposed to buy it first, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was in the show back in 2018. Henry, played by the wonderful George Banks.
And Henry Newton is a successor and heir to the Newton part of the Newton and Ridley family.
He'd earlier in the year been going out with Gemma, and then when she found that he'd wanted to date him just for a bet, she dumps him. But then he comes back and tries to woo her by saying, "I'm going to buy us the pub."
Yes.
But sadly, he was in a little bit of debt, and it all fell through.
Who was that? Cressida
was his fiancée, who he backed
he
out
had
on
a lot
the
of
engagement from.
He had a lot of secrets, didn't he, this posho? He was from a world completely different to anyone in Coronation Street. He was pampered and rich and a bit of an arse. Like you said, the first time we met him, he was making fun of Gemma and date a pig or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's what, pull a pig in.
Yeah, and it's a bit catchier than what I came up with. And so he has to prove himself, but he never really loses that ne'er-do-well streak.
No, but also with a little bit of patheticness as well, because
he's not like a Lewis Archer.
No,
who's
not at all.
Completely in control of everything and also posh.
Yeah.
He's chaotic. He's not as smart as he thinks he is, which I think is a big problem.
His main run-in with Jenny, which is why we've shoehorned him into the list here, is that when she and Johnny take over the pub, he tries to get himself a job as a barman just to try and claw back some of this cash that he's owing, and he decides to throw himself down the factory steps, doesn't he? The cellar steps, sorry, to try and sue them and get a massive compo payout. And there's a really fantastic scene where he's sitting there. He's been found out that he's trying to pull a fast one, and he's there on one of the chairs in the rows, one of the benches, and Jenny and Johnny are standing up, kind of looking down on him like a pair of disappointed teachers, and he's kind of snivelling about the prospect of going to prison because they're like going, "Oh, I wonder how much you'd get for fraud," and he's like, "Oh no, not prison. I couldn't possibly do it." And Jenny she's like a first day of landlady, there or thereabouts, I think. She's there in control. She's telling him to sling his hook. She's got the power. She's like, "I'm not having any of your nonsense." And I think that really
very triumphant.
Yeah, it was. And the no nonsense approach to landladying definitely encapsulated the rest of her term there. It was a really, really fun scene. And then he disappears off for a little bit, doesn't he? He comes back in 2023. And this was Jenny's suggestion, was that Gemma go to see Henry, didn't she? Do you remember? Gemma was in
needs
need of
money.
a bit of cash herself.
as usual. So Jenny says, go ask Henry because, he's got a thing for you, see if he's got any work. So she ends up walking around with a big notebook and a fluffy pen, as I recall.
Yes.
I'm not sure that she did anything in particular, but she eventually begs Henry to help to save the Rovers, and he tries to convince his dad to help. But in the end, the brewery gets taken over by Waterford, and he disappears again. We don't know.
No, I don't know where Henry is at the
Never
moment.
won Gemma back.
No.
Never got the pub.
No. But there was some great, not enough, but some great Henry and Jenny scenes during that time, and also I loved
he's
hearing.
Such a great character.
He's great, and I heard a little bit about their behind the scenes antics as well, because George is a bit of a gamer, isn't he? Because we kind of good friends with him as well. And he would bring his Switch into the green room, and Sally Ann Matthews, I can't remember what she was playing, like Streets of Rage or Street Fighter or something against Henry. So it's just lovely against George. Sorry,
George set up a lot of gaming stuff in the green room. I think a lot of people would like him to come back just for that.
I think so.
I would like him to come back because I like to watch Henry.
I do. Even if you wouldn't be able to share any scenes with Jenny again.
No.
But very tangentially Jenny related, that one, but worth mentioning all the same. There were some really, really good scenes that they had together.
Yeah.
I think it's time we moved on. Gemma, what's next?
I is for infidelity, because Jenny has had a few dalliances, hasn't she?
She has. For a character who I like to think of as generally morally upstanding.
I don't think anyone is on Corrie.
No, I don't think so.
They're all quite flexible, aren't they?
Yes, she's definitely not been the most loyal of partner over the years. And the one that stands out to me the most as being the most heinous of hookups was Ronnie Bailey back in 2021. Do you remember how mad I got about that?
You weren't happy about it, but he's got big guns, that guy. He's a buff bloke.
I know.
And he's obviously charmed Debbie, so there must be more to him. But he was a bit of he's not the most exciting of people, but Jenny saw something in him because she's
got something about kind of muscle bound, not very exciting people, because that's what Leo was really as well, wasn't he?
Maybe she just I've gone, personality, I've gone for that and it didn't work for me, so I'm just going to go for looks.
Yeah. So she was still married to Johnny at this time, wasn't she?
Well, they were in, a funk.
Yeah. He was in prison after the whole Liz infidelity thing herself. So she was a victim of infidelity because he ends up going off with Liz following Aidan's death. As a coping strategy for his grief, I guess. And so he ends up in prison for 4 or 5 months or so.
You don't go to prison for sleeping with Liz McDonald.
No.
But you should do.
He was in prison after the whole Scott Emberton escapade that we talked about earlier. And I think it was like the day that he was released, Jenny had slept with Ronnie, wasn't it?
Maybe she's just confused because they got very similar names. Johnny, Ronnie. How are you supposed to tell?
Who's that name we just called out? I mean Ronnie.
So she helps him get the keys to Ed's camper van because he wants to do it up as a treat. Right. And then because Ronnie and Ed were on the rocks because he confessed he had an affair with Aggie before she and Ed were married. So it's all very complicated, but she instantly regrets it, tries to keep it from Johnny, and then he comes back the same day.
Yeah, I think Johnny had been due to come out of prison a bit later. But I was so disappointed in Jenny for this. I really, really was. But I was such a Jenny shipper back in the day that anything that rocked the course of the good ship Connor wasn't good for me. But Ronnie Bailey, come on, Jenny.
She was not having a good time though because she was visiting Johnny in prison and it was all very depressing. And he was having visions, wasn't he, of Aidan, and he wasn't taking medicine. And
that's right.
He was ailing.
Yeah, he wasn't taking his MS medicine because one of the symptoms that he got from not taking it was that he would have visions of his dead son, and he kind of liked that.
Yeah.
And again, if these scenes were filmed in 2025, we would 100% have had a Shane Ward reappearance, wouldn't we?
We did get a voice.
We got a voice when he died. Yeah. But
if it was now, if they'd filmed that now, it would have been swimming along in the sewers.
Yes, for sure. Well, I think we wondered whether Aidan would appear at that sewer scene in the flesh.
It's Shane Ward.
So Sal was quite surprised by this turn up for the books, wasn't she?
Well, she said, literally that's a turn up for the books.
Oh yeah, she did say that. I thought
Jenny
I
has
came
been
up with
coming
that
back from prison visits to the charming and chatty Ronnie. They've probably been in the back room watching Beat the Chasers in the Circle and having a right laugh. It's probably been a huge relief and a release for Jenny, and now she's remembering what life was like before the angst.
It's funny because she likes a hunk, doesn't she? I mean, what lady doesn't? You can say that you don't.
I don't like. They're boring.
So
I don't want anyone. I don't want to be or talk to anybody who cares about how much protein they're eating in a day. That seems like the dullest thing I can possibly think of.
Yeah, I think he was probably in her mind a bit of an exciting change from the very safe relationship that she had with Johnny.
She's after Johnny. She goes younger, doesn't she? She starts dating younger hunky men.
Yeah, she does. This all caused a whole load of drama between Daisy and Ronnie afterwards as well, because Daisy finds out about it and uses this clinch that she catches him in to try and blackmail him into selling her pyramid scheme products that year as well. But so that was something I would rather forget. There was also a near infidelity. Well, I suppose it was in a way, when she was dating Leo a couple of years later, because do you remember Leo was going to propose to Jenny, and at the same time as he comes into the Rovers, she's there in the back room snogging the face off Stephen Reed.
What can you do?
Yeah, again, attracted by a bit of a suave hunk there in Stephen.
Yeah.
Although, Stephen was only interested in Jenny because he wanted to get his hands on the pub.
Well, she's also been, apart from Stephen, but she's also got involved with a married man, with Robert Weston, who's a dentist.
Not Robert Preston.
No.
Robert Weston.
She shacked up with him in 1991, and he knew that he was married but didn't mind being his mistress. And she also was a... What was it?
She was a bit on the side, wasn't she?
For Christina and Greg, and ended up poaching Greg off of Christina, who's never let her forget this.
She's a real relationship wrecker.
She's a home wrecker, yep. I think that Christina had her number for that. So broke that relationship up, and that's where Daisy came from. Greg.
This one with Robert Weston that you were talking about, that was how she ends up leaving the programme in 1991. She goes off to live with this married dentist. Who
I can't say it
leaves
sounds
his wife
inspiring.
No, but maybe it's a money thing. Dentist quite rich. What did we have for G earlier on? Ginger. I mean, second choice must be Gold Digger there as well, because that's certainly a name
she gets
that's
accused
of many a time
because of her relationship with Jay. Jay for Johnny.
Jay is for Johnny. The love of Jenny's life.
I think this is your love of Jenny's life is Johnny.
I've had a verification from Sally Ann Matthews herself that Johnny was the love of Jenny's life. Come on, who else could it be?
It does seem to be the one that's worked, that they put the most time into. I can't really think of another long term.
No,
I mean, we never saw her and Greg, so we don't know whether that was a beautiful
and
romance.
all the time with Robert as well. No, so this is the on-screen relationship that we saw. I don't remember what I thought when I heard that they were getting together, because it was a bit of an unusual pairing, right?
Yeah, Johnny is older than Jenny, and he's also feels like a very straightforward, no-nonsense guy, and Jenny is a bit of a player. She's a bit of a game player, isn't she? She's a bit of a, I'm going to do something for attention. If you don't do what I want, I'm going to play silly buggers. And he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that responds well to that kind of thing. He's also not very materialistic. He's a businessman. He's not really a family guy. He likes his beer, and I'm not sure what else he really likes. So on the surface of it, they have nothing in common. They don't really seem to have a sense of humour that they share. They don't have hobbies in common. What is it that they saw in each other? I don't know. But the chemistry, I think that Richard Hawley and Sally Ann Matthews worked very well together. They seem to have a really great professional relationship, and that kind of really showed on the screen.
Well, Johnny had a big heart, didn't he? He was a bit of a teddy bear.
He's the kind of guy who you can wrap around your little finger.
Yeah.
And Kate had been doing that her whole life, Kate's daughter. And then, once she's about to fly the coop, she never really bloody does she? Jenny then steps in as the role of like, please shower me with affection and money.
Jenny got the job in the factory as a cleaner, didn't she?
Well, Rita gets it for her, yeah.
Yeah. And she isn't trusted by her
people
co-workers.
don't like her.
They look down on her.
Well, people don't like her because of everything that happened with Maddie and Jack.
But Johnny saw the good in her. And I don't think it started as
she was very beautiful.
Yeah, but I didn't think it started as I'm going to prey on my underling here. I think that he just kind of saw that she was lonely, took pity on her. He was a bit lonely as well.
Yeah.
And they had a really...
It is a bit of a classic scenario, isn't it? Of like a woman with daddy issues, slightly older man whose children have flown the coop and is looking for companionship.
I imagine I thought it was a bit of an unusual pairing, but it didn't take long for me to be really all in on it, because Corrie did the great thing that they can sometimes do a really good job of at, which is making something romantic and simple and a bit beautiful, and they did this, and she like ends up doing some sewing lessons with him in the factory, doesn't she?
Well, she's trying to learn so she can get promoted how to use the sewing machine.
But then it also did get a little bit raunchy as well, because you heard about their antics in the in the material cupboard, I think it was, wasn't it? So it had a fun start. it had her spying on him at the spying for him at the factory,
didn't it?
Yeah, she was a mole in the factory, so that didn't go down well with some of the other factory girls. And then before, like, a year or so until they got married, it was a bit of a whirlwind, right?
Yeah, it was. And there was the whole thing too with Tracy, because of Johnny's relationship with Carla, and Carla was getting married to Nick, and Tracy wanted to ruin it, and then they became in cahoots with one another because Jenny helped him to trap Tracy in the cupboard. Yeah,
the Jenny traps Tracy in the stock room was brilliant, and she's there getting on with her sewing herself, isn't she? And Tracy's there hammering on the door, and I can't remember what Jenny says. It's like, pipe down in there. Some of us have got work to do. It was fun.
She plays
great.
I've written it down later on. I can't remember where.
I wish that
which letter it was, but I've written down a song that she plays.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but having. I'd like to have seen maybe a little bit more of Jenny and Tracy as enemies. Not that Tracy needed any more enemies at the time.
No, this was the Tracy and Carla feud.
Yeah, it feels like those two could have really had a great iconic, enemies, nemesis kind of situation going on there. But Jenny and Johnny's wedding, loved it.
Well, hang on. Before that, the proposal it was in January 2017. And then she... Like you said, she became a bridezilla. She had an atelier, didn't she, in the factory. She took over a whole room for her vision board for what she wanted it to look like. And in the end, it didn't even turn out that way, but she still enjoyed the day, didn't she?
Well, they were going to have a double wedding with Aidan and Eva, weren't they?
Yeah.
But they were going through a few issues of their own with Aidan's infidelity. And Rita, of course, this tied in with when she had the brain tumour. So Jenny gets to this magnificent hotel where they're going to get hitched and decides this isn't right without Rita being there. So off she goes to the hospital
on the back of a motorbike.
I thought that she came back on a motorbike.
Well, they were at some point during her wedding day. She was on the back of a motorbike wearing a wedding dress.
Fab. It was a great wedding episode.
But she doesn't notice that Johnny's MS symptoms are developing because she gets too caught in with it. Kate accuses her of gold digging, which is quite funny because it's okay if Kate is a gold digger for her dad, but not
somebody
Jenny.
else. The wedding scene in the hospital was brilliant, and Billy's there, isn't he? I think he's the one that conducts the ceremony. And
I hope they got legally married later on, Devon.
I'm sure they did.
Devon.
I loved how overexcited Jenny with it was, because he has to kind of rush the ceremony because the nurses are trying to say you can't be in here, you need to clear off, and Jenny's like, I do.
Yes, she just wanted, at the end of the day, she realised that no matter what the day brought and what the ceremony was like, she wanted to be married, and that's the most important thing. It's the getting married bit that's the most important thing, not the wedding.
Yeah, that's right. It was a fab wedding. I loved their relationship, which made it all the more difficult when Richard Hawley decided that he wanted to leave, and then they had to come up with a way of breaking them up. But he did stay on for the show for a year longer than he was originally supposed to, didn't he? Because he was going to leave in 2020, and then they were going to have the whole sinkhole drama. More on that later. I wonder which letter that will be.
D for drama. Oh no, it's already had
too
that.
late, we missed it. But so they couldn't have that when they wanted to, so he agreed to stay on the show for an extra year. And this is when all the was that when all the Scott stuff happened? I can't remember. And
you know what? I know that we kind of take it for granted, but it really is appreciated. I think I appreciate it when an actor is okay to like put their own life or their future, their plans on hold because they care about the character and the story. And I think that is a very I think it's not appreciated enough because we've seen what happens. I'm not going to name names, but we've seen what happens when an actor's like, I'm off. I've told you I'm leaving. I'm not hanging around any longer. And then they end up with a quite unsatisfactory, or sometimes not even an ending at all. So the fact that Richard Hawley stuck around to give Jenny and Johnny a really dramatic, good ending, and we're not going to talk about what that was yet, but it was worth the wait. I think.
Yeah, it really, really was. I'd like to think that had Richard not left the show, that the pair of them would still be together.
Yeah.
You know, she did have a roving eye, but they were really, really solid couple, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I think that they could have, in an alternate world, have gone down as a modern Corrie classic.
Well, it's really because, we haven't even said this, and I don't know if it comes up later, but it's only because of Johnny that Jenny gets the Rovers.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it will come up later because we've not said much about that. Yeah.
Penguins. They get the Penguins and the Rovers and the Johnny and Jenny together and the J and the J.
Yeah. Loved it. What a couple. Absolutely fab. I've lost complete track of who's on which letter now. Do you want me to do this one? Letter K is for Kevin. Another man in Jenny's life, and one that we mentioned earlier. He was partly responsible for her coming back into the show in 2014. So Jenny,
Kevin and Martin just really occupy the same space in my brain.
You're not so adverse to Kevin, are you? No,
I don't hate him, but he's not a great guy, is he?
They certainly had better halves, both of them, didn't they? And it could have been Kevin and Jenny, because when she appears in 2015, she's there as his blind date. Blind date. It was interestingly, I thought I don't think I'd seen this quote before. They tried to get Sally Ann Matthews back on Coronation Street in 2010 for the 50th anniversary of Coronation Street, and she said in this interview, normally my initial reaction would be to say no, but I thought I'm never going to get away from it, and people still recognise me from it. I'm proud I was in it. Coronation Street, that is. It's amazing it reached the 50-year milestone. I should embrace it. So that's when I started to feel differently. So after leaving Coronation Street in 1993, she went off and did a bit of Emmerdale, didn't she, for a while, and various other things. It looks like they tried to get her back, and finally in 2014 she said yes.
Yeah, because she had this, she didn't want to be typecast. She wanted to get away from Corrie and do other things. But it was the siren call, wasn't it?
Yes.
And she
eventually get to hook up with Kevin Webster.
Who would turn it down? This was announced that she would come back at a press conference by Stuart Blackburn in October 2014. And her return then at 21 years marked the longest break for a Corrie actress, but Debbie's broken it since.
It's funny, like 21 years in a way, it kind of feels like a long time, but
it also doesn't.
It also doesn't. When you have Dennis Tanner appearing after nearly 40 years or so, 21 is nothing. Yeah, like you said, Debbie's broken that now. But her first scene in 2015 in January was a surprise blind date with Kevin, and she's found Kevin on a dating site, and she says to him, I kind of always fancied you a little bit back then. I don't know whether that was retconned in. I can't remember.
They didn't have a lot of scenes, but they did have some in the 80s.
They had some scenes, yeah. There was one scene where they went to Sally and Kevin's 3rd wedding anniversary party, and she ends up snogging somebody there. I think that's another infidelity I didn't mention before. She also dates Kevin's boss, Mark Casey, when Mark inherits the garage off of his dad. So she really is, isn't she? She had a lust for power.
The Mrs. Factory, Mrs. Garage owner.
Mrs. Garage, yeah. There's a couple of nice clips of this from 2015 on YouTube that I was looking at the other day. There's one where Kevin brings her to the street, and it's the first time she's set foot in it for 21 years, and she's kind of commenting on the maisonettes that have kind of all sprung up and ready since then, and she's like, it feels the same, but it's a little bit different.
Oh, it is weird when you go back somewhere. So this was this Media City?
No. This was back in.
So it was the same place that she had been when she
Yeah.
was, because obviously the sets have changed over the years. There's been quite a few different sets, but so she went back to the old Key Street set.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure that's right, but I might be wrong. I've lost track. In fact, now I'm mentioning it, I'm thinking maybe it wasn't. I think it maybe was Media City. Anyway, I thought that I didn't remember much, but I saw a couple of clips of it, and it really did feel like Jenny and Kevin had a good bit of chemistry going on. And it's funny thinking back then, because Jenny kind of meant nothing to us prior to her comeback, didn't she?
Yeah. This is the thing about this, is that when we were doing the podcast, we had not, like, you had your history of watching it. I had like a very small amount of, not very limited knowledge about.
You'd watched it for the 10 years, hadn't you, beforehand?
Yeah, before then, but Jenny wasn't in it.
No.
And so a lot of the things we were talking about, it's like we were students in history class going, I heard about this, thing that happened in Germany, but I wasn't experiencing it myself.
No.
So
I'd seen bits of Jenny on Granada Plus.
Yeah. And it was really, I think I credit Sally Ann Matthews for inspiring us to really, really take the history of Coronation Street seriously and start to watch the older episodes to get a grasp of these characters. Because when you're doing a podcast like we were, and then a character comes back 21 years later, you're like, okay, I do have to take this seriously. It isn't just like a revolving door or like a conveyor belt of like new stuff all the time. Coronation Street has got this really rich history with all these characters that have backstories that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
And so you can't ignore it. You really do have to acknowledge and kind of pay tribute to that backstory, because it does inform the way the characters act. And so it was the fact that she came back and Sal was, you listened to the show as well. I really do think that it kind of kicked off an era of this podcast you're listening to now that probably might not be the same without Sally Ann Matthews.
Yeah,
I don't think that's wrong. I think that she really has been a very influential figure in the show as well as Coronation Street.
Well, this return as well. I think she was brought in for 6 months or so. Because then she has the whole baby dangling incident with Jack on the balcony, and she disappears off for 6 months. So it was come back for a little bit, see how you get on. And we'd seen a bit of that with Sharon, Rita's other main foster daughter, who'd had a comeback or two since her original stint in the early 80s. So I was like, I think Jenny sounds like quite an important character, and they decided to hook her up with Kevin, and they really kind of clicked straight away. There's a lovely clip I was watching the other day of them on the sofa there at number 13, and she's looking all glam, and they're sharing a beer together, and he's saying, "Oh, you're trying to get me upstairs." Rita's right. You're trouble that Jenny Bradley. I think "you're trouble that Jenny Bradley" or "she's trouble that Jenny Bradley" is a perfect kind of quote. I think she needs to have that on her headstone, doesn't she? Or maybe just above the door of her next bar that she goes in.
Yeah.
But
I tell you what, Jenny Bradley is an excellent name for a ship.
Do you reckon?
Well, because
there's quite a few that have sailed in her. As we found out.
Because we live in like a kind of sea area, so we go to marinas and walk past boats, and there's always funny names on boats. I really like looking at the names of boats. I think if I was rich and I had some boats, I would want one of them to be called Jenny Bradley.
Well, that's almost Forrest Gump's boat there, isn't it? Because it wasn't his boat called Jenny. No. Gemma hates Forrest Gump. I love it. Anyway, so Kevin was lovely, because everybody, when Jenny came back, even Rita, had turned against her. They'd heard what she was like. She had a bit of a bad reputation, but Kevin was like, no, I'm going to give her a chance. But Sophie, Rita, Sally, the whole lot didn't want anything to do with her. But he really helped her settle back into Weatherfield life.
But he was wrong to ignore the warnings.
Well,
wasn't he?
Yes, because she did develop a bit of an unhealthy relationship with Jack, didn't she? Because this is when we learn about her dead son Tom and how he drowned, and she's uber protective of little children. And there was this one scene where Jack picks up a shallot and Jenny goes crazy because she thinks he's going to choke on it. Anyway, I think maybe more on that incident later is going to come up, so maybe we'll leave it there. But yeah, what a comeback that was. And I remember when she left at the end of May, June, whenever it was in that year, and I was thinking, I think I've got a new all-timer favourite character here. And I really, really hope that she comes back again. And luckily, it was only a couple of months, I think, before it was revealed that she would be back properly full time in the early next year. But thank goodness she was given some really, really great material for those 6 months. It was absolutely wonderful.
Can you imagine Jenny taking on the role that Abby has in Kevin's life?
Jenny taking on Abby's role.
I know that Abby doesn't seem very domestic, but I really think that she's more domestic than Jenny, because I cannot imagine Jenny washing Kevin's pants.
Can you not?
No. I don't know why anyone washes Kevin's pants, but maybe
Do
that's...
it himself. There wasn't really... I wish that they'd had more with Jenny and Kevin over the years, because I know that things were soured somewhat after she kidnapped Jack.
Yeah.
But everybody forgives everybody everything. There's not many proper long-term grudges on Coronation Street.
You can't hold a grudge.
And yeah, I wish that they'd interacted a little bit more. There was a lovely scene when Jenny and Johnny were going through a rough patch, and she goes round number 13 and cracks open some lagers with him, and she kind of just opens up and vents about her frustrations with Aidan and Kate particularly, who are making things difficult between her and Johnny. And it did kind of make me think, what if? And she didn't get to say goodbye to him. I would have loved that in her final episode, because she didn't say goodbye to anyone really apart from Rita, did she? And she even wore that same outfit in her ending scene. Well, it was very, very similar to what she wore for her blind date for Kevin. And he's going through such a rough patch at the moment. It would have been nice for her to have given him a bit of a G up before disappearing off.
Interestingly, we did have a scene that could have happened with Jenny when we had Sally
Metcalf.
Yeah. Have that scene with Kevin where they both were sitting in the kitchen talking about how they've moved on since their marriage. And obviously it works a lot better with Sally, given the history between her and Kevin. But it is a shame. I guess that's why they didn't have it with Jenny and Kevin, because he didn't need Jenny to sort of give him that dose of nostalgia, because Sally was going to do it
was there
soon.
For him. Yeah.
And wash his pants.
And wash his pants, exactly. Do you wanna announce our next letter? What the bleeding L is L, Gemma?
L is for landlady.
Of course it is.
And this was Johnny and Jenny taking over the pub, August 2018, and this was such a great, amazing moment for us on the podcast, because we've had a couple of our favourite characters take over the role of landlady since we've been doing the show. Toya, love her. She wasn't as good.
No, she wasn't. I wouldn't say that she was necessarily a favourite character of ours when she took over as well, was she?
Speak for yourself. and Johnny and Jenny, and it really did feel like a good move.
The Rover's landlady position is so iconic, and so few characters have had the role over the years, that for a character who is so important to us and such a favourite to us as Jenny, it was just a dream come true.
It's like being crowned the Queen of Coronation Street, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or like the Prime Minister.
Sal has said to herself, when I chatted with her last week on the podcast, and she said that it was never really a role that she'd envisioned. She'd never thought, well, I'm going to be the next Rover's landlady. It was just kind of dropped on her lap one day by the producer, and she's like, oh my gosh. I remember we did an interview with her. It was me and you that interviewed her back in the day when you would sometimes sit in on them.
Do that anymore.
Back in 2018. And we chatted with her about kind of immediate reactions to becoming the Rover's landlady. And she said, well, this is actually a secret I had to keep for 7 months. And even back then she said that she was gobsmacked about it. She said she was looking forward to the nice frocks that she would get to wear as Rover's landlady. What did you think of Jenny's landlady fashion? Did she have a look?
Yeah, she did. She had like a business, like Karen Brady-esque kind of like nice outfits, you know?
Yeah.
Like she wore like business attire. She looked like literally she meant business behind the bar. Sometimes you get like Liz's style was a bit,
tarty.
I was going to say a different word, but tarty's an excellent word to describe her.
I know what Blanche would call it.
Yes.
Prostitute.
But Jenny kind of looked like, I'm taking this seriously. It does remind me a little bit of when I was at school, and every year in September I would have like all of the stationery and a new pencil case and everything was sharpened, and then the middle of September it's all gone to pot. So yeah, it was.
It's funny. Sally Ann had said that she wanted a bit of a Showtime look for Jenny, and I don't think we ever particularly got that.
I don't know that you know about fashion enough to really have an opinion about it.
Would you call her look Showtime?
She was putting on a front, wasn't she? She was presenting an image to the world that she was like someone not to be trifled with.
Yeah.
Women have to think about. Well, women don't have to think about it, but we send messages with what we wear because there are so many choices. Like with men, you wear straight guys will wear a suit or jeans and a jumper most of the time. That's
I am in
really.
jeans and a jumper right now.
But women have so many other things you've got to wear, and that every single different outfit sends a different message to people and different messages to different people, and so you can tell a lot from a character, especially on a soap, because everything's selected for a reason, isn't it? And I think that Sal looked great in all of her Karen Brady outfits.
I thought it was funny. Again, I listened to part of this chat that we had with her back in 2018, and one of the things she said was, I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of landlady Jenny will be. Will she be bossy? Will she be fun? Will she be drunk? And I think she ended up being all of those to some extent, didn't she?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I just loved how it was a real rise from the ashes from her, wasn't it? Because she had been a cleaner at Underworld, and within the space of a year and a half or so, rising to the ranks of Rover's landlady. What a journey for her.
It really is interesting, because if you look back at the early days of Coronation Street, you had characters' roles were quite you had Hilda Ogden was a cleaner, and you had Annie Walker as the landlady, and you could never imagine the two of those doing each other's jobs.
No.
But Jenny kind of promoted herself through the stereotypical jobs that a Coronation Street character might do to get the top job. And she really deserved it.
Yeah, totally. Do you remember when they first started, they made a big hoo-ha about, they're going to redecorate the Rovers, they're going to, you won't even recognise it.
Yeah.
Because when you do think that, don't you? Like, when a character takes over the Rovers, is it going to look the same?
Yeah.
It went all beige for Stella, didn't it? And we've seen, we've talked about it on our recent trip to Media City. The next person who has the Rovers is going to have some flowers outside the front of it, and so this was very much what are Jenny and Johnny going to do to put their stamp on it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anymore.
And they were kind of teasing everyone, weren't they, saying it's going to be rebranded as the Rovers with a Z.
Yeah. And be a gastropub. Now I was I was slightly worried, because I didn't know if they were actually going to do something like on a short term.
Hated it.
Like I always thought it would go back to how it used to be, but I was a bit worried that for a little bit of time it would be something hideous, and that people would hate Johnny and Jenny and want it to be back how it used to be.
But in the end, they had the opening party, and it pretty much looked exactly the same, didn't it?
I don't really know what they changed. I'm not
I
very good at
I don't know whether they
the
changed the upholstery or something, but
probably.
Yeah, it was pretty much left as its classic look. What else has Jenny and Johnny, Jenny, I suppose we're talking about her, got to be proud of as a time of Rover's landlady?
Well, one of the biggest upheavals I think that anyone's ever had to deal with, apart from, we're going to close the Rovers are being sold, which never really happens.
Well, it happened under her, didn't it?
Well, Jenny had to steer the ship through COVID.
Yeah.
And this was a time when hospitality was really, there was a lot of issues, obviously, because of social distancing, and I think also, I think Sal was saying, she feels like a bit of as a representative of a whole industry of people that were suffering. She felt like she had some kind of responsibility to be a spokesperson almost for them, and show how it can be done. And they changed things about the way the Rovers was run, and you had a one-way system and take away pints. And
yeah, I think that Jenny is the sort of person that would see it as a challenge to get her teeth sunk into, and it seemed to do the job, didn't it?
Well, it didn't really, because from that point onwards, the Rovers struggled.
But that's more. I'm not going to say that's Jenny's fault.
No, of course not. It was.
It just made fewer appearances in the show.
It was a two-pronged issue. One was the logistics of filming in the Rovers, that they've only really just worked the kinks out, as far as I can tell with that.
Yeah, 5 years later.
The scheduling makes it difficult to have that many characters together in a scene. And there's limits now as well to how many they can afford to have on screen at any one time, which is utterly ridiculous. And also the story, universe, world, real life stuff of a pub, quite realistically struggling past COVID into a world where people don't have as much money, cost of living crisis, lots of different issues that led to the Rovers not really, struggling really, and her ending up having to sell.
And it was a shame. We spoke about this recently, and we did a Patreon episode, didn't we, about top landlords and landladies and Rovers owners, and we said that it was, we just didn't get to it. She had real potential, but sadly circumstances dictated that they just didn't get enough screen time. They didn't have as many Rovers stories. You said earlier about the fact that they had a really strong team there with the likes of Glenda and even Sean. I really enjoyed behind the bar. Daisy, obviously, but we just didn't see enough of it. But I think at the end of the day, I really bought how important the Rovers was to Jenny, especially after Johnny died and she had to carry on steering that ship alone. And to have her final scenes not dissimilar to Bet's, where she's like there leaving the pub, kind of stroking the sign a little bit before going off to a brighter future.
It reminds me...
It's very fitting, very, very fitting.
A little bit also of what happened with Annie Walker when Jack died and she had to take over by herself.
Yes.
And there was... I don't think anyone questioned her as much as they did Annie, because, the misogyny at the time was rampant and nobody thought she could do the job by herself because she was a woman. But that question of, can she do it alone? And... I think it's interesting how Jenny was a completely different landlady, but there are still parallels between her and some of the icons of the past, like Annie and Bet.
Yeah, and I mean, they made a very overt reference to Bet in that, in the final scene, didn't they, of Jenny? And it could have been even more different if they'd gone with the original plans with Bet appearing. But yeah, I think when I look back on the iconic Rovers landladies, Jenny's absolutely up there for me. And I think I'd like to think that had Sally Ann Matthews decided or not decided to leave, I'd like to think that she would still be there with her name above the door now, because I never got to feeling anywhere close to that's enough of Jenny now. No. Let's give someone else a turn. She could have kept that going, Annie Walker style, for many years to come, I'm sure.
The idea of taking her out of the Rovers to me was a huge mistake for the character, because I think that even though it didn't feel like an obvious direction for the character to go in, once she'd gone there, it felt so right to me.
Yeah.
And like you said, I always felt like I hadn't been really given what I was hoping for from it. And there was so much potential that never really got realised.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I loved it. And thank you, Corrie, for coming up with the idea of putting
her
Jenny
and
there,
Daisy too. What a brilliant idea to bring in this non-existent stepdaughter.
Yeah.
And now
that leads us on to M. M stands for Midgley. Daisy Midgley. What revelation she was for Coronation Street.
You weren't sure about
I wasn't. Her. No, I had so many ups and downs with Daisy. But I tell you what, double acts in Coronation Street aren't such a big thing as they were back in the day.
No.
But I think that Corrie has got very, very close to a modern iconic all-timer with Daisy and Jenny there behind the bar.
Honestly, it's such a shame that they're no longer with us.
No longer with us, no longer friends, even.
Really, they...
On screen, that is. Off screen, apparently, very much so.
Yeah. I mean, we knew that when Jenny came back to the show, we knew that she had a history away from the Coronation Street with Tom, who was her son.
Yeah.
And then we find out that she's got this surname of Midgley when she runs off with Jack, and the Websters go to the police.
Yeah, I'd forgotten before we came up with doing this that the name Midgley was part of her story from right back in the beginning of her modern era.
Yeah, and it's only really this year we found out her husband was called Greg because of Christina.
Greg Midgley.
And we also found out in 2020 that she had this stepdaughter that we'd never heard of before.
Well,
She
I
mentions
remember
Daisy.
the first time that we'd heard about her was when we went up to Manchester in the summer of 2020, and one of the things that Sally Ann Matthews said to us when we met up with her there was, there's something coming up in the script, and I think you'll probably think that it's a bit retconny or a little bit doesn't sit right, but trust me, go with it and it's going to be great. And this was a bit of a hint that this previously the never before mentioned stepdaughter Daisy would be manifested into existence mere months later. And it really was a case of Jenny happens to mention her one episode, doesn't she? And then, what do you know, within about, a fortnight at most, Daisy is there in the flesh and on the street.
Yeah, she's coming on the way to... She going to Edinburgh with her boyfriend Lee.
Remember him?
She's being an absolute cow. She hates Johnny. She doesn't want them to be together.
Yeah, Jenny and Johnny were going through another rough patch at that time.
Well, it was the Scott problem.
Oh, that was the Scott problem, wasn't it? You're right. And when Daisy arrives, and we're supposed to believe that they've had somewhat of a relationship in the intervening years, but Daisy is kind of loyal enough to Jenny that she clings on to the fact that they're going through a bit of a rough period and tries her best to split them up for good, which I hated her for because I love Johnny so much, and I did not want this kind of prissy, glamorous, up herself, loved her reflection girl coming in and breaking up the duo that was Johnny and Jenny. But I tell you what, if Jenny was gonna, I do think that Jenny and Johnny were such an iconic couple, and I didn't think anyone could replace them. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I think
that Jenny and Daisy were much, for me.
Yeah, for you.
They were my favourites of recent times behind the bar. Those two together. I wish we'd seen more of them. But just having that, just the expressions they gave. Their little, you say Jenny Bradley Death Stare, but Daisy was working on her own.
She was. Yeah.
And the pair of them giving you the stink eye would have been quite intimidating. I think
they were like a couple of mean girls behind
the
bar.
They really
sometimes,
were,
weren't they?
and they had the throne and the mini throne, didn't they? The Queen and the Princess.
Yeah, whoever came up with that idea of having them have a, because Bet used to sit on a stool at the back sometimes, didn't she? And I think that was something that Jenny was supposed to have taken from her. But yeah, the two of them there ruling the roost as Queen and Princess was such a good look for them.
Now they do fall out quite a lot. They're
both strong personalities.
It's when Daisy tries to get involved in the business side of the Rovers that it really starts to come off the rails, because when Johnny leaves, Daisy tries to get in to be a partner with Jenny at the Rovers, but Daisy'd had this bad reputation because of the double glammy stuff that she'd been involved with.
Yeah, the pyramid
and
scheme.
so she didn't really want her to be involved in the business side of things, and it really carries on like that all the way through to the end.
Yeah, she was desperate to get her claws in. There's the time when Jenny was supposed to be emigrating to Canada with Leo, and I remember, was it Daisy and Gemma that were vying for the position of bar manager, temporary bar manager, and eventually Jenny grants it to Daisy, although has to quickly rescind her offer when Leo turns up dead. But it was kind of a nice little journey for Daisy that eventually she did get more of a foot in the door, and she was down as the owner or an owner when they bought it with Stephen's money? I can't remember.
I don't think she was. It was official, and so
I thought it was official, but they had to keep it quiet.
Right.
And Jenny didn't want everybody knowing.
Yeah, Jenny didn't want people to find out
that Daisy and her, and then they had to lie and say that Daisy's mum Christina had lent the money that Daisy could use.
Along comes Christina, and everyone is because this was 2023. The stolen money that Daisy is the architect behind stealing the money that Stephen stole off Carla, and this kicks off this very convoluted story that never really feels like it goes where it means to, and it's still carrying on now because Carla is still the owner of the pub as we're recording this, trying to sell it off to somebody because of the fact that Stephen had stolen the money all those years ago. And it's funny because Jenny was always reluctant to go in cahoots with Daisy, and it's it always felt like it was because she didn't take Daisy seriously because she was younger. She felt like she was a kid. And although she was like her mum, she also had that kind of, she's a stepmum. But then we find out the revelation that actually Jenny blamed Daisy for Tom's death all this time. And Daisy didn't even realise that she...
Yeah, so Jenny had this lingering resentment for
this
her
grudge
for the past
that she'd held
10
and she
years or so.
Probably never really acknowledged it that much in her own mind, but that adds to the reasons why there was always that conflict between the two.
I think Jenny also felt, rightly or wrongly, that she had earned the Rovers and it was her domain and she was the queen of this place, and to have somebody come in, just swan in, which I think is what she saw Daisy doing in a way, it didn't sit right with her.
Yeah.
Even though, the only reason that she got the Rovers is because she married a rich guy herself.
Yeah,
Jenny.
exactly.
I did feel a little bit towards the end. Jenny was kind of playing a bit of second fiddle to Daisy, and she was there kind of just interfering in Daisy's love life and being there as a bit of a sounding board for Daisy. And Daisy was the main character a little bit, maybe in the last 12 months or so, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, as a pair, they were so good together. And again, it's to do so much. The chemistry of the actors helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Charlie Jordan and Sal, absolutely superb together, and it was good to hear that they got on so well off screen. We've seen them performing. We've been behind the scenes where they've performed together, and the energy when they're in scenes together was
watching
off the scale.
Watching Sal and Charlie together doing that scene, it seems like a lot of the actors have their own methodology and they'll all have a different way of doing things, but it was really interesting to me to see that it felt like Charlotte Jordan really was very at home with playing with the character of Daisy and coming up with ideas on the fly, and some other actors will just say the line and not really change or play around with it, but those two had such a great relationship with each other. They really were. They were good. The scene that we saw them film was in the Rovers, and this was before Glenda had appeared on screen, but Jodie Prenger was there, and she was playing as Glenda, and it was like, wow, these three are so just magnificent to watch them all. And now only Glenda's left. I know.
We were also, you kind of mentioned it, you touched on that earlier, the Christina's introduction into the programme. We've got Daisy to thank for that, and I've just loved the rivalry that Jenny and Christina have built up together over this past year. I mean, when Christina came in, she saw Jenny as the woman who split her marriage to Greg up, and she never really got over that, did she?
No.
And even in this final week, last week when Jenny was ready to leave Weatherfield, they still had them bickering, and luckily I'm very glad to see that Jenny came out on top in their final scene together, because if Christina had the last laugh, that would not have sat right with me.
No, she deserved it. She put the time in. She's clocked on and off longer. Christina's got other people that she can triumph over. I think that I wonder what she's going to get on with Theo. What something's going to happen with those two, but not about Christina today. It's about
I just wanted to say as well, for Daisy's exit, which was an all-time great one for me, that wasn't a big stunt or a death or anything like that. Sally Ann Matthews' performance in the scene where she reads the note from Daisy telling her that, sorry, I've taken your money and I've gone, absolutely brilliant. And Jenny had trusted this girl. She'd been her closest confidant, to now be hoodwinked by her, because Jenny was planning to do the same to Daisy, wasn't she? She was planning to buy the pub rebuy the pub without Daisy's input, so she did kind of ask for it. But yeah, that scene was superb, where she's reading the note and she kind of collapses there on the table. I just wish that they'd had a happier ending together, because I love those two together.
It feels like a really weird choice, because Jenny and Daisy were a iconic double act, and the ending for them is kind of how it ended with Bet and Rita, where they fell out and they never made it up.
No, and now both characters are gone, probably never to return again.
I can't see either of them coming back. Genuinely, I would love it if they did. I would not be surprised if they never do. So to leave that story like that feels quite sad.
Yeah, it is.
The only silver lining is that Christina's still in the show, so it is possible that we could get a throwaway line
about it, yeah.
like, "Oh, I hear that Jenny and Daisy are now in."
Yeah, I mean, Daisy's gone off to Bali, hasn't she? But who's to say that she couldn't just hop over to Tenerife and open a bar
and Bali
together
are
with
very
Jenny?
close.
That would be fab. Right, let's go on to N. N stands for, Gemma?
93 return.
93 return, 1993. I thought it would be worth talking a little bit about her mini return, which was only for 9 episodes between the 17th of September and the 8th of October 1993. This was before I started watching it. So I don't know what the reaction to it was at the time, but Jenny had been away from the programme for just a few years, and quite often once you leave, you leave. So this was a bit of a funny mini comeback, and I'd really be interested to know about the circumstances around that and why they decided to do it then, and was there ever any plans for it to go longer or go? But,
what happened?
So she'd gone off with this dentist, Robert, in 1991, and she turns
How did that turn up?
Not so good. He ends up going back to his wife, the cad, and so she
won't let Greg make the same mistake.
No, so she ends up turning up on the street because she's got nowhere to live, but she's nicked his dog, Mitzi, who was an Akita, a gorgeous Akita dog, and she turns up on the street and tells Jenny, "Oh yeah, this is mine," but then
tells who?
Rita, sorry, that Akita is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then Robert clears their joint bank account, snatches Mitzi whilst Derek and Mavis are out walking her one day. And so that's very much the end of Jenny and Robert's relationship. So she kind of decides to settle back into the street again. And this is when she gets her job at the Rovers, which is what was referred to in last week's Coronation Street, this final episode of Jenny, when she talked about how she almost idolised Bet in a way, wasn't it?
It's interesting because really on the surface level, there's not enough crossover between Bet and Jenny for it to be a meaningful relationship. But on the other hand, I can see there are sometimes people in your life that are there for a very brief amount of time, but they make a huge impression. And I do think that Bet would be the sort of person who would leave, a thought in your mind for many years to come. And perhaps a short amount of time with Bet never really brought up her problematic side, so maybe she did idolise her.
Yeah, I mean, Bet was working at the Rovers with Alec when Jenny was there for the first time, and I know she was 16, 17 for some of it, so she wouldn't have gone into the pub. But I think that she would have got to know Bet's reputation, because it didn't take long once you've met Bet to
find out what she's about.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and so
I get the idea that she wanted to be like her, and she knew she would have known. Obviously, as a Corrie fan, Bet is idolised in a slightly different way than people actually would idolise a landlady of the local pub. But she must have known, and they've got the photo boards, haven't they, in the Rovers? And I think Bet's on there still. So I did like how they mentioned that. But anyway, she ended up working in the Rovers just for a few episodes, alongside Tanya Pooley as well.
Now, that would have been someone to leave an impression.
Eva Pope is still acting, I think. That would have been quite interesting to have had her come back and team up with Jenny, because she was a massive bitch as well. I think she would have probably led Jenny down a bit more of a naughty path, but alas, that never was. Basically, it doesn't go well so long. Jenny, over the years that she's been away living with this rich dentist, has got a very, very high opinion of herself, and she's got a lot more selfish, a lot more manipulative, and she tells Rita, look, we need to go up in the world. This is after Rita had been married to Ted, and he died, and he had a house in Oak Hill, which is the posh bit of Weatherfield. So Jenny says to Rita, look, take this house off the market. We should go and live in Oak Hill herself, because she's used to, living the life of the mistress of a dentist. And Rita's like, no chance, I don't want to do that. So Rita, it doesn't take long for Jenny to tire of Rita's
thriftiness,
lack of ambition and thriftiness. And so she says, look, okay, how about then, I want to set up a beauty salon, can you give me 30 grand please, Rita? And Rita's like, no thank you very much. Because I think the main reason why she didn't want to move, well, one of the reasons why she didn't want to move into this house with Jenny is she thought that Jenny was just after a bit of getting a name on something so she could get the inheritance.
She didn't want Rita to sell the house. She wanted to move in there and wait for Rita to die so she could sell it herself.
So there's a great scene in Rita's flat in an evening where Rita is telling Jenny, I know what your game is, lady. You can have this £1,000 and I never want to see you again. You better be gone by morning. So it was a really tough end to this relationship, which up until that point, yes, it had its highs and lows, but it's generally fairly positive. And this is why when Jenny came back in 2014, Rita was not at all pleased to see her, because as far as she was concerned, it was more than just £1,000 is just pocket change for Rita, really, isn't it? But the fact that she'd given Jenny so much love and trust, and Jenny had just thrown it back and saw her as a bit of a walking, talking ginger cash machine. Yeah, not surprised that she was a bit miffed.
So you had Rita, who was, first of all, she fostered Jenny back in the 80s. Then in 93, Jenny comes back with a handout asking for money. Then in 2015, Jenny comes back, but it's for Kevin, because of this split date with Kevin. But then in 2016, it's Rita who rescues her from destitution and this horrible
poverty.
What's it called?
Bedsit.
Yeah. And then it's when Rita, she lets Jenny go, basically, at the end of everything. And there was a bit during Jenny's exit storyline recently that it was a bit worrying as to whether she was going to fall out with Rita again, because they've got form. Rita's got form for burning bridges with people, even dear friends. And so we were staring down a very possible likelihood of Jenny, because she started lying about Rita being sick and then got found out immediately, and then Rita could have turned on her again and sort of cast her out, and that would have been a super sad ending.
Well, it was quite nice that, and I'd not really made this connection before, but back in 93, Jenny asks for money, and Rita's like, sod off, you can have this little bit, off you go. But here, Rita offers her money, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So she gets a big payout, and it was
maybe
the fact that the fact that Jenny didn't ask for it.
It was a few hundred quid.
Shows that maybe symbolic. There's been a bit of character growth there.
Yeah, I thought that was... Yeah, I liked the symmetry of that.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, that's about all there is to say. There's only 9 episodes, wasn't there? So let's move on to O, which stands for Oh La La. And this is Jenny's dalliances with France and all things French, because she's had a couple of stories that have been related to France. First starting in 1987, when Martin, who she was still going out with at the time despite the car crash, decided to quit his job at Jim's Cafe and go and work in France. And Jenny's like, that sounds like a good adventure, I'm going to go too. And they headed off there across the channel with dreams of working as like grape squashers, but they didn't really get anything out there. So Martin comes home with his tail between his legs. Jenny, meanwhile, though, has found herself un homme qui s'appelle Patrice Bourdevin.
Yeah, he's a law student.
He's a law student.
In Paris.
Once again, Jenny has got her eye on a man with quite a lot of cash behind him.
But it's because
He's probably had a great personality too.
She's beautiful. And beautiful women do have a habit of finding guys with a bit of spare cash.
So they ended up getting engaged really, really quickly. Alan, who finds out her dad is having no part in this. But they're engaged. And then Jenny, and then Patrice kind of gets slight cold feet and says, well, let's wait for my college course to finish. And Jenny doesn't like that.
Yeah, he says 2 years, I finished college, and then we'll get married.
Yeah, so they try and have a bit of a long distance relationship, but Jenny has got a roving eye, and she ends up kissing one of her mates, Gary, while his
at a party,
the Webster's engagement party, which I mentioned earlier. And when Patrice finds about that, he says au revoir to Jenny. And the last straw is when he finds out that she took off her engagement ring when she kissed Gary as well, to try and hide the fact that she was already taken. But yeah, that was the end of Patrice. And we don't get too many Coronation Street characters played by non-English actors, do you?
No.
And I wonder how many actual proper Frenchmen there have been here. So Patrice was played by a bona fide Frenchman called Franck Dubosc, who is an actor and a stand-up comedian. And actually, he's
pretty bloody handsome, actually.
Well, I know Jenny could have stuck with him, couldn't she?
And he lives in Normandy, which is, about as close as you can get.
Yeah. Now, he's quite a big name in France, because I was talking to Sal a couple of months ago, and I was like, maybe Patrice should come back and whisk her off. And she's like, I think that Franck is up to bigger and bigger and better things than Coronation Street. She didn't use those exact words, but yeah, he's a bit of a movie star. He's currently the 94th most profitable actor in French cinema. 94th is quite low down, but there's quite a lot of French actors out there, I'll tell you that. He has got a really long list of movies to his name, most of which nobody's ever heard of. But one thing that stood out to me, that the sequel to Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, he played Nemo's dad in that. He was the French voice actor. Marlin, he played.
He was also in 3 movies called Camping.
Camping, fellow Camping.
2 and Camping 3.
I don't know how big his movies actually are, but the fact that he's
a comedian,
quite loaded,
and he's got very
quite well.
blue eyes.
Yeah. So what could have been?
He was also Cacophonics in Asterix and the Olympic Games.
There we go. I don't know. So yeah, I would quite liked if they'd maybe made reference to that. Maybe they did at some point. I can't remember.
We were going to ask a random French man to pretend to be Patrice when we went to France this year, but Michael wouldn't ask anybody.
I forgot that was your idea.
I can't speak French.
Well, now you know what what's it looks like. You would have never found somebody quite so handsome enough.
There were quite a lot of guys that could have played the part, I'm just going to say.
Okay. I didn't realise you had a roving eye when we went on holiday.
I was looking for Patrice, Michael.
Jenny was also going to go and live in France, wasn't she? Because we had that thing when Jenny and Johnny go off there for a month in 2016, and again in 2020 when Johnny goes off there. So they could have been going living with Eva and little baby Susie, but no.
Alas, no. But if you want to speak French,
yes,
you need to know what apple is.
What's P, Gemma?
P is pomme de light.
So I was one time.
How would you say that in French? Pomme de light.
I was at one point thinking of putting P as Patrice, but I had to give Pomme de Light a shout out for being a very short but memorable stint in Jenny's early time on Coronation Street. So Pomme de Light was a Newton and Ridley cider that the brewery launched in 1990.
Now, this might be one of those things that is invisible to me because I'm a southerner, but I don't know whether it's just far more popular cider in the south than it is in the north. And maybe the joke was, who would want to drink cider when you could have beer? I don't know if there's a joke there that I'm missing. Because to me, Pomme de Light sounds amazing.
I know. I mean, you can actually get it because in the Rovers at the moment they do sell Pomme de Light, don't they? It's in the fridges at the back, so you'd never see it on screen. But yeah, apparently a couple of years ago they were wanting to brand up some bottles there because the more that they have publicity placements in the show, the less that they can use actual brands for anything. And so they decided to rebirth Pomme de Light. And I've even got a picture of myself holding a bottle of it.
Pomme de Light sounds delightful to me.
What this has got to do with Jenny is that she was one of the Pomme de Light girls alongside Steph Barnes in 1990. There's this really sleazy promotions manager from Newton and Ridley's called Clive. He's doing promo nights for it, which basically means driving from pub to pub, getting the girls to dress up in these
this is kind of
slinky, kind of hideous outfits.
This is kind of like what we had with Wednesday's episode the other week when Jenny left. It's kind of interesting that they had promotions for a vodka brand. Well, they don't really do stuff like that, but they must have made up a fake brand for this vodka campaign that Glenda fronted for Patio Doors, where Theo and Todd ended up in Canal Street fighting with each other. So it's kind of neat that a drinks promotion happened in Jenny's final episode.
Jenny was part of it. Jenny was still very young when she did it, and she was kind of doing it for a bit of a laugh. And the outfit was kind of skimpy, but also it was just kind of very silky. It was like a silk orange top and a straw hat with like vines draped all over the shoulders. It was kind of embarrassing, but Jenny thought, let's do it for a laugh. But when she's told, well, you have to go into the Rovers and promote it there, she wasn't a big fan, but she swallowed her pride and went in anyway. And you don't see a whole lot of it, but there is this one scene where she's sitting in the booth in the Rovers doing a quiz, which is kind of ironic because Jenny goes on to do quizzes, doesn't she? Her very first Rovers pub quiz was as a Pomme de Light girl, teasing the locals' brains with questions such as, which city is named the Big Apple?
Harrogate.
No. And what did Eve tempt Adam with in the Garden of Eden?
KFC.
A pear. Anyway, so there's, if you haven't seen a picture of young Jenny Bradley dressed up in her Pomme de Light outfit, I do urge you to go and have a look because it's quite fun.
And if you're one of these crazy Americans who are all crazy, not a crazy American because you're all crazy, who thinks that Halloween costume is anything, not scary, anything, why not be a Pomme de Light girl?
Yeah, you could.
Halloween.
That would be a proper Corrie retro throwback and probably not too difficult to throw that together.
Not in this country.
Not in here, but in America where you don't have to dress up as a scary
If you're
thing.
going to be, if you're going to dress up as a Pomme de Light girl for Halloween in this country, you have to be a zombie Pomme de Light girl, a witch Pomme de Light girl, or a vampire Pomme de Light girl.
Is it a Zom Delight if it's a zombie fan?
Sounds even more delicious.
Right, we've kind of hinted at it earlier, but Gemma, what have we got for Q?
Q is, you said Jenny's main contribution to the Rovers. I think it's just one of her initiatives because also, you know, we have the B&B, but her biggest institution, I think, probably is the Monday quiz.
Well, you know, there's only so many things that start with a Q, so I was scraping the bottom of the barrel with this.
You did a good job.
Scraping the bottom of the beer barrel, as it were.
I think the quiz has really provided us with some hilarious moments.
Yeah.
For Coronation Street. I love the fact that it's a Monday quiz and it normally happens at lunchtime. And I don't know why everyone's free at lunchtime for a pub quiz.
It was nice that there's something that Jenny can say, that was my deal.
I wonder,
they started it really early on, didn't they?
Yeah, it was in a few weeks of Jenny and Johnny, and it was like, you know, here I am with my business outfit. I'm starting a new thing. I'm going to do Monday quizzes. Her enthusiasm and what's the word where your ambition for the Rovers is kind of adorable. And her doing the quiz carried on all the way through COVID. They did
some Zoom quiz, didn't they?
I wonder if the new owner will keep up the Monday quizzes because
Glenda's probably dropped it. It's more like Monday karaoke now.
Well, Glenda moved into karaoke, and I wonder what is next for the Rovers.
The funniest thing with the quizzes for me, was not the fact that they were often on Monday afternoons, or at least it felt like it, was that there was usually only about 2-3 teams competing against each other max, and sometimes they had some quite good prizes, I remember, as well.
Yeah,
Wasn't
like champagne. Yeah, what are they thinking? How did they get these prizes?
Of course, my favourite Rovers quiz memory in recent years was Daisy's mic drop moment when she announces that.
Well, she's like,
who's
if
the daddy?
Daisy
Is it? Yeah.
slept with blah and
Daniel
blah.
and Kit. Who's the daddy? That was great. I loved it. They kind of lent into it a bit on the social media on Coronation Street as well. I think there was a few pub quiz to camera things that Sally Ann Matthews and Richard Hawley recorded back in the day as well. But anyway, it's nice that you've got some kind of legacy there.
Well, we also have our very own trophy from a Rovers pub quiz.
We went to a Rovers, an actual real life Rovers pub quiz a year ago, didn't we?
Hosted by Sally Ann Matthews as Jenny.
At the Corrie Press Day.
We won.
I
take no credit at all. I don't think I answered a single question.
No, I think you might have done, but not many, I'm going to say.
Really, really bad performance from me, but I do have a trophy.
We have got a trophy. I'm, in fact, looking at it right now. It was presented to me by Sally Ann Matthews. That's one of my proudest achievements at being able to answer Coronation Street questions and amongst a bunch of other soap journalists and influencers.
Yeah, and we're on a team with Colson Smith and Shanique
Sterling-Brown,
who both
others.
fought to be on our team.
Apparently,
I think that was probably the peak of my existence because I didn't deserve to be there.
The one and only genuine Corrie quiz hosted by Jenny Bradley, and we won it. That's something to be proud of there for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, up next is the letter R, and that stands for read.
Stephen
Read all about it.
Now
okay.
Again, what a brilliant return from Uncle Stephen, the evil Canadian.
He wasn't evil when he returned, he just grew evil.
He was evil. He was always up to no good, wasn't he? Because he had big backstory where he was
He's just a businessman.
No, he wasn't, because he came over, like, before he was, yes, but when in his return, when he came back, he had money troubles from the start.
That doesn't make him evil to have money troubles, but he was hiding it from the Platts, wasn't he?
Well, he also was on the run from his wife as well.
Oh, yeah. What was her name? Gabrielle, was it?
Yes, Gabrielle. So, Stephen Reed, played by the very lovely
Todd Boyce,
who is gorgeous and, you know, great, wonderful guy. And he, as Stephen Reed, comes back and he immediately, you know, well, he sets his sights on Jenny because he wants money.
I think his intentions to her were somewhat untrue, weren't they? He wanted the pub. He was desperate for cash, and he sets his sights on Jenny. They kiss, like we said earlier, when she's going out with Leo. But things kind of cool down a little bit after he kills off Leo.
Yeah, we'll talk about
We can talk about some of that later.
Yeah, but so. Yeah, he gets put off because she goes out with Leo, and then once Leo's out of the picture, he tries his luck again because he's still trying to get this money, but he's also got this thing going on with Elaine at the same time.
Yeah, he can't shake Elaine, can he? Do you remember that character Owen, who was the businessman who was investing in Nipper Snapper at the factory, and Stephen didn't like the idea that he was sniffing around Jenny, did he?
Yeah, and he
eventually got his...
puts her off. He puts him off by saying to Owen that she's a bunny boiler, so watch out. Then they go on a wine tasting, which was hilarious.
No, I didn't think No, they were going to go on a wine...
I was thinking of a different
You're thinking
wine.
of a different wine tasting.
Yeah.
They were going to go on a wine tasting, but they didn't go in the end because they had to go to Lily Platt's birthday party. And I think that was a really lovely scene because I remember Jenny having the scenes in the Platt's house and just enjoying the normalcy of a big family gathering.
She'd not had that.
No.
She had very briefly a family of 4 when she was with Greg, and she had Daisy and Tom. And then everything went wrong when Tom died, and since then she'd been looking. She came from a broken home. Her mum died when she was young. Her dad wanted nothing to do with her, and so she'd never had a big family at any point in her entire history on the show.
Kind of with Kate and Aidan, but it wasn't the same thing. This was just a domestic scene that Jenny had never really experienced. And going to this Platt family gathering was just lovely for her, and it got her and Stephen kind of close together, didn't it?
Yeah, and so Stephen splits up with Elaine. He ends up without a home to go to, so Jenny invites him to move to the Rovers. And then there's this whole thing with Leo's dad, Teddy, when he's looking for where he is, and Stephen is like, I need to escape immediately. So he plots to move to Thailand with Jenny. Carla's like, don't trust this guy, he's up to no good. But Jenny believes him when he says he wants to, start afresh with her.
Stephen was... I was kind of gutted that Stephen was trying to use Jenny, but I loved the fact that Jenny caught him out.
Yes.
Because do you remember that scene at the airport where Stephen's there...
Liverpool Airport,
trying to get his tickets to escape to Thailand because he ends up dumping Jenny, goes to get to his passport and Jenny's pinched it.
Yeah.
Because she'd
she
seen
knew
the light.
She was one step ahead of him.
Yeah, but then that did lead to the second hostage situation that Jenny had been in the Rovers in about 5 years, when Stephen comes back and holds a bottle to her neck.
Yeah, in the abandoned Rovers, and then he gets run over by Peter Barlow.
Yeah. I love both of those actors, and Stephen, I wouldn't have wanted Jenny to end up with a serial killer really, but we did always have a hankering for, even if it's just for a brief moment, having a serial killer behind the bar as landlord of Rover's Return. And it could have happened had the storyline decided to make it go that way.
They missed a trick with not giving Stephen like a 1 day behind the bar.
Yeah. But Sally Ann Matthews loved working with Todd Boyce from what we
he
can
also
tell.
loved, when she's announced she was leaving, he made a comment on her Instagram.
Well, she spoke
about
to me
how much he loved working with her.
She spoke to me last week about just how hard working he was, and
he's such a nice guy.
He's a really nice guy. In one interview, she was asked about the possibility of their relationship, and she said if Stephen had not been such a murderous bastard, they'd have had a really good time together.
I bet. They were perfect together. Yeah. They really were. He was... I think that she'd been with older guys, she'd been with younger guys. I don't know what the age difference between her, if there is one, between Todd Boyce and Sally Ann Matthews. I don't know.
Oh, he's older.
But he's well preserved. He looks great, and
he could have been the proper arm candy.
Yeah, I think that he had the looks, and he had the gravitas, because of if he hadn't been a failed businessman, she definitely would have loved him. what a missed opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
Well, he's dead now.
Let's move on, speaking of deaths, to S. And S in our A to Z of Jenny Bradley / Connor stands for sinkhole.
Sinkhole!
This, I'm going to say, I know not everybody, whenever I talk about it, I say I know not everybody likes it, but this was 100% one of my favourite Jenny moments. Most iconic, most epic moments of Jenny's return, the modern era. And probably the biggest, got to be the biggest stunt she was ever involved in. It started off with a car crash and Martin Platt rolling down an embankment, and it ended up with her falling into a sinkhole in the Platt's garden, getting stuck in the sewers, and then losing her dear Johnny. That was an epic week of episodes, and I'll not hear a word spoken against it.
It was very campy and
totally
over the top, but I really think that if you hated it at the time, I'd hope that maybe you've mellowed a bit on it, because it was ridiculously brilliant.
It was the big stunt that Corrie had wanted to do for the 2020 60th anniversary, but they weren't able to do it because of COVID. So It was delayed a year. Richard Hawley was kept on the show as Johnny for a year, and I was in no way disappointed with how that turned out, apart from the fact that we had to lose Johnny, of course, through it.
What was it called?
Coronation Street.
That's it, yeah.
Because it was all the stuff with the
Abby
fun fair, wasn't there? And Abby and Corrie and everybody. Yeah. But as sad as it was to say goodbye to Johnny, it was a really kind of beautiful ending for their relationship as well. It kind of came full circle a bit. They'd been having these issues. The relationship had broken down over the previous year, but she fell into the sinkhole. He goes down to find her, and they end up stranded up ladders and up to their necks in water.
Well, there was two elements to this Coronation Street. There was the kind of the haunted house, like spooky lights and silly
Harvey going around with a gun,
and spooky things, and Abby in a hole and all that kind of stuff. And then there was this kind of more gritty, realistic kind of stunt work where they had the flooded sewers and kind of like this maze that Jenny and Johnny are stuck in, and they can only see each other through this tunnel, and the water is rising and they're drowning, and Shona comes to save Jenny, and she can only rescue one person at a time. The ladder snaps. It's so dramatic.
It really
and dark,
was. It was
and
one
really
of
well
my
lit.
favourite Corrie stunts.
And it uses all a part of Coronation Street we'd never seen before and we'll never see again probably. All underground.
Well, they had it filmed in this big warehouse, didn't they? And I remember that summer, Sally Ann had messaged us saying, "You will not believe what I've been up to today." And this is when they've been filming all this. And it was so clever because they had all these big water tanks, and to give the impression that the water was rising around them, they lowered the sewer walls into the water. It's really, really cleverly done. But yeah, the whole thing with they drifted apart over the year, but then this brought them together for one final bittersweet farewell.
It was a really neat way to end this love story, where they're separated, and Shona's the side with Jenny, and she rescues her, but Johnny is stuck the other side of this tunnel, and they can only see each other through this tiny hole, and then Johnny kind of gives up.
Yeah, his strength gives out, doesn't it? And he slips
dies.
Below the water. And this is when he hears Aidan's voice as well. And that scream that Jenny does, she's like, "No!"
Yeah, when she sees him dying, and then Shona has to drag her out, but Jenny doesn't want to live anymore because she's everything's died in front of her eyes, and it was so dramatic. I don't think it really gets the credit it deserves, because it was caught up with all the kind of more larger than life stuff that happened. But I think the whole week was fun and silly and camp and dramatic and really, really Corrie.
Yeah, Corrie's not had a stunt as big as that since. So I think, as a everyone talks well about the tram crash, don't they? But I don't know what people
It was really unfortunate, because
I
I think if they'd had the proper run up to it and COVID hadn't happened, and it had happened in December, and it would have been done the way they wanted it to do without this year long of pause that they had to build in, it might have been different. I loved it being at Halloween, because I think Halloween's brilliant. I love Halloween.
It was a few weeks before it, wasn't it?
Well, it was all Coronation
Yeah.
Street. I the whole of December I take. Actually,
Christmas.
half of September, all of October, and November as well is all spooky. I hate the phrase spooky season. It's really starting to annoy me now, but it's all the scary part of the year. And so having Coronation Street do spooky stuff was fun.
Yeah. Sal at the time said, those scenes in the sinkhole were Richard. His final scenes, they were just incredible to do. We had the best time ever, absolutely wet through for 6 days, but being able to work so closely, it was so exciting. I was terrified, to be honest. I had no idea whether I could do any of it, but we just had a ball and a really lovely end to Jenny and Johnny's love story.
I bet she's glad that
It so was.
they didn't do what they did to poor Jack P. Shepherd and the rest of the Platts when they got driven into the canal and they didn't care about putting people actually underwater and drowning them.
Oh yeah, just to chuck them in back in 2003. There's some kind of health and safety back in 2021 when they did this. Yeah, just loved it. I still feel like it's not stood the test of time. I don't know.
Why?
I don't know.
Why'd you say that for?
I don't know.
I think to say it's not gone down in history is different to say it's not stood the test of time.
I mean that. I don't think it doesn't feel like it's gone down in Corrie
but
history.
You do think it stood the test of time?
Oh, 100%. I was watching some of it the other day.
So
it was
I'm glad that we
great stuff. Great
there.
stuff. T, let's go down and kind of lower the tone a little bit of this now, because T stands for Tompkins, and not a shining point in Jenny's romantic history, is it, when she was dating Leo?
Yeah, this was when this was part of Stephen's story, really, but Jenny was involved tangentially because she was dating Leo. So Leo was a civil engineer. He came to repair the sinkhole. She meets Jenny. Jenny thinks that he would be a good match for Daisy, but he falls for her, and so they end up kind of dating.
And it was a big thing made of the age difference, wasn't there? Because Jenny had a bit of a history.
21 years.
Yeah,
difference.
Jenny had a bit of a history of dating older guys. Yeah. So to have her eyes turned by this young bit of stuff was a bit of a departure for her, and she was kind of thinking, should I do it? Should I go out with a guy who could be my son?
Well, it was funny because after Johnny dies, Leo keeps his distance, but then they start dating again, and then Leo gets injured at a rugby match, and she goes to the hospital, and then gets chatting with her old friend Teddy.
Yes,
who
he
she
was a
knew
school
from
friend.
School, and they were, he was like, "Oh, I used to fancy you," and just as they're talking about that, Leo comes out and reveals that Teddy is his dad, and so Jenny is dating a man who really she's old enough to be his mum.
I think you're probably on the same page as me as this, but we were never really never really hooked in or taken by the idea of Jenny and Leo together, were we? He was very, very dull character. He didn't have much going for him. I'm sorry, Joe Frost.
He only revealed his personality, which was to be a bit ruthless, when he finds out that Stephen's got money troubles and Leo wants to move to Canada after being made redundant, and so he tries to blackmail Stephen about his money issues, and so Stephen in retaliation chucks him over the side of the balcony at the Underworld and throws him in a bin. And so Leo goes missing.
Exciting.
That was
the most exciting
so
thing
Leo's
Leo
dead
ever
now.
did.
So then Teddy, his dad, starts looking for clues, and Stephen's trying to throw him off the scent, and there's this really great scene at the end of the year where Teddy's realising that there might be more to what Stephen knows about Leo than he thought, and he's just confronting him, and he steps backwards into the road and gets run over by a van, ends up in hospital. Stephen tries to kill him, but Jenny, this is when Jenny comes into it again. She comes into the room, and she's connected to Teddy because she's trying to find out what happened to Leo too.
Because Leo he'd said he was going to go off to Canada.
They were going to go to Canada together.
Jenny assumed that Leo had emigrated without her.
So they're looking for him, and Teddy's in a coma. And so Stephen decides to tell Jenny that Teddy told him that he saw Leo in Canada and that he doesn't want to talk to anybody. But then at the end of the year, New Year's Eve, the last part of the episode, Teddy's eyes open and you realise there's more to the story. So Teddy eventually confronts Stephen about Leo actually not being in Canada, and so Stephen says, "Oh, come talk to me in the factory." and then bonks him on the head because Teddy's accusing Stephen of killing Leo because he wanted Jenny to himself. And so Jenny is involved in this story as kind of like this weird three men all end up fighting each other, and they all end up dead at the end of it.
Yeah.
And so Stephen whacks Teddy, killed the third person with his hole punch, and
sticks him in a roof box.
And Audrey drives off with it.
I think that Stephen kind of did Jenny a favour by bumping off Teddy and Leo, didn't he? Can you imagine an alternate universe where Jenny ends up settling down with Leo after having such a history of iconic Corrie boyfriends, and I'm including Martin Platt in that. But yeah,
Leo Tompkins was not it.
Leo Tompkins was not her man, and so thank you, Stephen. You've done us all the service there, because he could have ended up becoming the landlord of the Rovers. Imagine what that would have been like, honestly. Yeah, not a shining light in Jenny's history was that, was it? Let's move on to you. And Gemma, you is for Underworld. And we're going right back in time here to 2016 when she first was coming after her comeback. And Jenny may
We've kind of covered a lot of this already.
Yeah, I think this is always going to happen as we get to the end of the alphabet. But yeah, she got the job in Underworld as a cleaner, didn't she? And I think a lot of people, hopefully, she's going to be remembered. Her Corrie legacy will be as a landlady. But she had a fairly good stint as an Underworld cleaner, didn't she?
She was there for 6 months doing that. And I do like it when, you know, iconic characters do jobs like that. Because
she kind of had to humble herself, didn't she?
Yeah, she was in the doghouse because of everything that had happened with Jack. And nobody liked her. And so she had to work really hard to prove herself. Sally was mad at her too. She trained herself on the machines to try to get this promotion, and then she ended up spying on everybody and getting people in trouble for watching movies when they should have been working.
Yeah. I loved that was the summer when they had this really great promo picture. I don't know if you remember, in Underworld, which was a very like a panoramic picture, which had all the different characters like in poses that were related to their character or the storylines they were in. So Sally was there looking disapproving as a clipboard, and I think Izzy was throwing some knickers around, and Jenny was kind of giving the glad eye to Johnny. It was a really, really nice Daniel Bagley, I think, promo shot.
I wonder if they took a photo of everybody at the same time.
I think they probably didn't. I think it was a bit of a composite. Yeah, I enjoyed that little factory area because it gave her and Sally Metcalf, a bit of sparring, didn't it? And Sally never really trusted Jenny after everything that happened, and like I said earlier, she didn't like the idea of her dating Kevin. So it's funny because once she moved out of the factory, and you remember on the wedding day when Johnny carries Jenny over the threshold of the factory and they discover that the roof isn't there. Once all that kind of saga was over, she never really returned to it. She
didn't care about it or think about it ever again.
Yeah.
She only really had a couple of storylines in the factory. One of them was when she thought up some mastectomy bras, and the guy who ordered them cancelled it, and then she saw a picture of him groping his assistant and blackmailed him into doubling his order.
Yes, she did. That felt like it was going to be a big story, and I think it kind of ground to a halt.
And then we also had the thing about Jenny helping Johnny lock Tracy in the factory storeroom. And that was really it.
It was nice that she had a job that was a bit humbling for her, because I think pre-factory Jenny, she had got a bit big for her boots, hadn't she? As we saw, 1993 Jenny had an incredibly high opinion of herself, and to accept a job as a cleaner was a bit of a way of saying, look, she didn't think she was too good to be a cleaner.
Yeah, hang on, I was a cleaner. I was a cleaner. You don't have to humble yourself to be a cleaner. But I think what happened was it felt as though in the world of Coronation Street, she pole vaulted her way to thinking she was Queen Bee. And instead she had to put the graft in. And she hadn't done that. She'd gone with the dentist, and she'd shacked up with him and kind of then demanded money off Rita. Although, to be honest with you, I don't know why she wasn't allowed to do that when most of the other women on the show have done similar things.
I know. Anyway, yeah, I enjoy Jenny's Underworld stint, but I think Rovers is what she's best known for, and I think that's right.
the thing about Jenny at the Rovers was she had to prove herself to the community after what had happened with Maddie. She had to kind of win people over. She also had the side of her where she did feel a bit like a gold digger, and Kate challenged her, and it looked like she was only into getting married because of all the pomp and ceremony. But I think that over the years, she proved herself, and she ended up marrying Johnny in a ceremony in a hospital room, and kind of like all that stuff went to one side. And yeah, I like that. I like that kind of arc.
Okay, well, let's move on to V then. And V for Jenny is for vino. She does like a bit of the old booze, doesn't she, our Jenny? And I think it feels like it's been a character trait that's grown over the years. I don't remember her coming back and being a lush, but she certainly... I think they had a few scenes where they had her act a bit drunk and then realised that the fans quite enjoyed it. And then they just, every opportunity they could, they had her clutching a glass and getting a bit leery.
Yeah, Sally Ann Matthews was excellent at playing. I think she's my favourite drunk actor on Coronation
great
Street.
stuff.
But the problems with the alcohol began in 2018 when Johnny had an affair with Liz. And so she started drinking and it didn't go well. There was a pub quiz that she started reading the answers instead of the questions, and everyone was getting mad, and she spills wine everywhere, and Johnny eventually tells her that she's been an idiot, and so she storms off.
I love the stuff. Was it later than that, after that, where she gets the tracker for Liz, and doesn't she sign Liz up to a dating website?
She puts her adverts.
Yeah, I remember there was a scene in the Rovers back room, I think it was, or maybe it was upstairs, I don't remember, where she's just there with a glass of wine and she's just really loving the fact that she's setting Liz up on this dating site just to spite her, I suppose.
Yeah. And so Johnny goes and warns Liz and says, I'm going to have to fix this by firing you, because the fact you're working in the pub is really driving Jenny literally insane. And so she gets upset. This is at the end of the year. I can't remember what year it was. Jenny gets drunk. She gets behind the wheel of the car. Liz comes out of her house having just been fired, and drops her earring on the floor. And then Jenny looks away as she's driving and runs Liz over. Liz gets up, and Jenny can see her in the mirror. She gets up and disappears. So Jenny drives off. And Liz goes home and collapses and then doesn't remember what happened. Liz thinks it was Johnny because Tyrone finds a dent in his car. So Johnny takes the rap for it. But then Jenny goes around and tells Liz to drop the charges, but accidentally outs herself as the person who was driving.
I always thought, as fun as it was to see Jenny getting drunk, and Sally Ann Matthews was a very fun drunk character to play, I did kind of wish that it was more behind closed doors in the Rovers, because you never saw Bet get sloshed in front of the punters, did you? And I like the idea of Jenny being in control, and to have her...
Yeah, but that's what makes her different, isn't it?
Seeing her this vulnerability, I suppose, it maybe would have decreased their trust in her, and I'd like to have held it together and maybe had a bit better a reputation. I don't know whether I'm alone in thinking that, but it was fun. It was very fun to watch. There's a few. They just every so often they like to dot in Jenny being.
Yeah, there was a great scene with Carla, Daisy and Jenny all getting drunk in the back room of the Rovers. And there's a bit where Carla says that she fancies John Hamm, and Jenny says, I couldn't fall for a fellow with a meaty surname, which I thought was quite funny. She also, she keeps boozing after running over Liz, and everybody kind of finds out that she'd done it. And Yasmin, Sally, Abby and Tracy are all kind of making fun of her, and she shrieks at everybody and kicks them out. And she also ends up hitting the booze again when Daisy leaves in May. And this is kind of where the seeds are sown a bit by Rita telling her that she's still got time in her life to do something else.
I'd forgotten that.
And that she should move on and do, find... She said, I would have told you to find a man, but maybe that's not the right thing for you.
Yeah. I suppose, I said that a lot of the other landladies didn't get drunk in front of their clientele, but we had Peter as an alcoholic, didn't we? So at least Jenny didn't get as bad as that.
Maybe
a bit close.
When Jenny does it in May this year, she does it in the front, behind the, she's sitting on the punter side of the bar because she's saying, well, I don't care, Carla's going to sell the place. And so it's someone else's problem now.
Okay. Right, well, I think we said all we can say about Vino for the moment. So let's move on to near the end of our list now. W time, Gemma. We're on to the tricky letters of the alphabet now for sure. What is W in the A to Z of Jenny?
It is wig.
Of course it's wig. How could it possibly be anything else? Jenny's iconic wig moment from her return to Coronation Street is... it just lives on in the hearts of many a Jenny Bradley fan, doesn't it?
It was an excellent moment. We said before that she, G's for Ginger and her beautiful...
Yeah, she did once try to cover
red
up
hair.
those delicious tresses.
And then she ended up with this black sleek bob.
It's just the whole story behind this is hilarious because this is when she kidnaps Jack, isn't it? She would develop this unhealthy relationship with young Jack Webster.
No, it wasn't a relationship, a fixation.
Fixation, yeah. And she decides that she's going to kidnap him because she's having a little bit of trauma following the death of her son Tom, and she starts thinking that Jack's her child, doesn't she? She starts passing him off as her own.
She starts to think that he could be Tom,
but she sets up this kind of alter ego for herself as this bewigged woman, and
called Melanie Davis.
Yes, that's right. And so she puts on this wig.
Hilariously, she puts the wig on to make a phone call.
Yeah, to try and get this flat in...
No, to get the cab to come and pick her up.
Oh, was it?
So she's got everything packed up. She's got the wig on ready. She phones up for the taxi and Maddie walks in on her, sees these bags everywhere.
Sees Jenny in a wig.
Jenny, Maddie attacks Jenny and runs away to try to tell Kevin. But before she can tell anybody, she gets blown up.
Yeah, sad times. I just wonder what the thinking was behind, let's put her in a wig. Because it didn't really add anything other than, what's this then?
It was so super camp, and it's like a super serious storyline about a woman suffering from a mental health crisis. But in the middle of it, there's just this wig.
It's like a bit of schizophrenia, isn't it? Does she really think that she was Melanie Davis? And Melanie Davis is the alter ego of Jenny who's got a wig on. Mm. I loved it. And we saw 2 or 3 episodes of it. And like we said, I think we talked about this recently. This Jenny wig was... This is the first foot in the door for us in Coronation Street, wasn't it? Because it was after you spoke about Jenny's telephone wig on the podcast that Sally Ann Matthews then tweeted us, and this was the first contact that we made with her. So I guess that's another reason why Jenny's wig was so iconic for us. It helped, put us in touch with her. But you're right. I think it's the campiness, and Corrie has not had many female villains, but one of the best remembered is Maya Sharma, of course, and she was ultimate Corrie female villain, and I think Melanie Davis, as it was, she could have gone off and been the new Maya Sharma. It
is really funny that they never went there again with Jenny once she came back.
No.
She really had to prostrate herself.
Well, she was, at the end of that little mini story, she was sectioned, wasn't she? So it looks like they did a good job with her.
She actually ends up kidnapping Jack, taking him to Hull, making him have a birthday party for Tom. He doesn't like it. She phones Rita up and tells her what's happening. Rita comes but brings Kevin. Kevin ruins everything by being a dick. And Jenny's about to jump up off the balcony when she realises that maybe she might be overreacting.
Yeah, there's another lovely little Rita story there, where Rita's trying to convince her, because Jenny is like really losing it. You can touch this was again, we were saying just how brilliant. I think it was this scene. We'd enjoyed seeing Jenny up to this point anyway, but this scene where she's utterly losing any grip on sanity when she's there on the balcony, this kind of sealed it for us. But sadly, it was also a case of, well, and that's your lot for Jenny.
I know.
Possibly forever, but luckily we only had to wait a couple of months until we found out that she was going to be back again. But
just like Michael Jackson, it didn't hurt her career to dangle a baby off the balcony.
I wish that somehow they could have reincorporated this wig in as remember this, like when she's packing to come
I know,
away,
I would have loved to
have
seen her put the wig in. Wow. Yeah. Maybe not everyone remembers. It was a while ago.
Well, with now it's part of the A to Z that has been set in stone as one of the most iconic things about her.
If Coronation Street did an Addams Family spin-off, I think that cousin It would have had a little Melanie Davis baby.
Do you reckon? X is for exit, of course. And I think we did this for Gail's A to Z as well, because there aren't many words that begin with an X.
I think if this is gonna be a regular thing, then exit will be X every time.
Yeah, and we spoke about this recently on the podcast, so I don't know whether we need to go into it in huge amounts of detail here. But Jenny has just left. It was actually the Corrie viewers, the spoiler-loving Corrie viewers, didn't really have too long to get used to the idea that Jenny was leaving, did she?
Sally Ann Matthews revealed that she was leaving on the 1st of August on Instagram and then left on the 1st of October.
Yeah, so a couple of months people had. We knew about it beforehand. I can't remember when we found out. March, April time maybe. So we've had to keep that secret for a little while. And
she had already filmed her final scenes by the time she had posted that she'd left.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or was leaving.
And so, as sad as we were for her to go, we were very excited to find out what nature exit she would have. And it was low-key, I think it's fair to say.
As she wanted.
As Sally Ann wanted, it was a proper low-key exit. It was She
left in one episode.
Basically. She wakes up one day, and then by the end of the day, she's off jetting abroad to Tenerife. And it's completely and utterly unrealistic. And we talked about this on the podcast last week, that I've kind of reached a stage where I'm just like, okay, then whatever. And I don't have the energy to get offended or mad about the fact that people are emigrating at a drop of a hat anymore, because it seems like it's just the way that Corrie people do it.
It felt, she didn't appear in many episodes once she left the Rovers and Glenda took over as manager, but you really got the sense that it was true to the character, that she felt lost without being behind the bar, and she felt that she owed Rita to stick about. And when George found out that that was kind of the only reason that was keeping her in Weatherfield, he got Rita to kind of let her go, like a dove at a wedding. And so that's what happened. She's, Rita gave her the money that she was going to use to go on a date with George, and she went to Tenerife.
The whole George angle, I'm glad that Sal has since said she doesn't really think that Jenny was that into George, because I think struggle.
Jenny said in the
was
scene,
Jenny saying it? Was that? I can't remember. I think I did find it a little odd when they decided that Jenny was gonna start fancying George, and of course we knew at the time that this was the beginning of the end for her. He just doesn't seem her type, and especially when you had Christina, her rival, coming in, and she seemed so much better suited to him. I'm really glad that Sally Ann got an exit that she wanted, and she got her big moment of stuntage with the sinkhole, didn't she?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't help but think I would have wished for something a little bit more. But that's showbiz, kids, and that's the way that Coronation Street is these days. Like Sally Ann said, they don't particularly do huge exit storylines anymore unless you're dying. And I'm glad she's not dead.
Yeah, that's the main thing. She lives another day.
Well, look at when we were watching the week before she left, we were thinking, how on earth are they going to get rid of her in 2 episodes? And I was starting to wonder, like, is she going to get killed off? Are we gonna? Is somebody going to out themselves as a murderer? Is this going to be the beginning of Carl Webster's reign of terror, or Theo maybe? But luckily we didn't get that, and she got a triumphant exit, and there were some lovely scenes with Rita.
I thought it was interesting that she didn't go in the back of a taxi, because back of a taxi exit is a bit of a trope.
It really, really is. And she walked.
It's kind of like a byword for a cop-out. And it does feel significant to me that she didn't do that.
I had not really considered that, but you're absolutely right. Looking out of a window is often a bit of a miserable way. I mean, it wasn't for Daisy. Daisy had a really triumphant back of the taxi exit, but that was an outlier. Usually it's I'm leaving Weatherfield in disgrace,
but she wasn't,
or just to somewhere not a bit worse.
She wasn't driving through like normally you drive down Coronation Street in the back of a taxi and look out, whereas Daisy, it wasn't. It was somewhere else. She was.
Well, I loved with Daisy's when they were stop at the roadworks, and then the man turns a sign round from stop to go, and it was like the new chapter of your life is opening up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Daisy got a better exit than Jenny, but
Daisy did get a better exit than Jenny, and I will stand by that. And
it was actually, I think, Charlotte Jordan leaving that really started Sally Ann Matthews thinking about leaving too. So
yeah,
that was the interview that you did. Listen to that if you are interested in hearing more.
It's very, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, Gemma, Y is for
yearly episode counts.
yearly, same as Gail also had yearly episode counts for. I couldn't think of anything else, but we haven't kind of talked stats that much, have we?
No, she has been in 1,414 episodes in total, making her the 48th most featured character.
I'm glad she's in the top 50 at least.
She didn't quite get as far as Hayley did. She's 33 shy of her. She beats Rosie.
Rosie was the next one down, was she? I think she was at 49, yeah.
So she appeared in 2023 in the most amount of episodes that had ever been, jointly with Daisy.
Yeah, this is a bit of a record for her, wasn't it?
189 episodes, but then Dee Dee broke that record the following year with 214, and I think that maybe whoever gets the highest this year, that will be the all-time record. If somebody beats Dee Dee this year, they will have the highest one, because once we get to 5 episodes, I'm gonna think it's gonna be difficult.
It's gonna be really hard to get the episodes that high. You're absolutely right. Nobody's gonna get that many again. I hadn't considered that.
It's possible that Jenny and Daisy are gonna be joint second, or if somebody surpasses Dee Dee, maybe joint third.
I think with Jenny, yes, she was in quite a lot because there was some of the Stephen stuff going on there. But equally, when you're behind the bar at the Rovers, you do have lots of episodes where you appear in it and don't really do much. So I think there was a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
And also, Jenny was, as I say, a bit of a wingman to Daisy at that point, so it wasn't full on intense for 2023.
Most of the time, she was in 50 to 70 episodes in a year.
Really?
Yeah. From 1986, when she was in it.
Yeah.
1993, she was only in 9, like you said previously. But then once you get to 2017 and 2019, she ends up with 139, 124.
Oh, okay. So the 50 to 70 was from the 80s when they didn't have that many
through
years.
To 2017. 2020, you write that off because that was COVID. And then you've got 2021 was 143. 2022 was 113. But her biggest years, 2018 to 19, was this Jenny and Johnny by the pub. Aidan kills himself. Jenny is in the rivalry with Liz.
Had some really great... I mean, we loved... 2017 was one of our favourite Corrie years, modern Corrie years ever, partly because of the Pat Phelan saga. But felt like it was really riding a high at that period in the late teens, and having Jenny on the screen so much was just brilliant for us. You know, her going into the Rovers, becoming the face of Coronation Street, if you like.
I mean, since 2017, she was a main face of Corrie.
Yeah.
And then 2021, she was on it a lot because she was rivals with Sharon.
And that brings us to our final letter of the alphabet. Z stands for Zzz. Have it.
That's
Jenny's tasering is reached is the end. We can't believe people are thinking, are they going to mention the tasering? Because I think it's one of Jenny's most memorable moments, wasn't it?
It's a meme.
It's a memeable moment. Jenny being tasered by Sharon Gaskell. What was the tasering about?
Oh, it's very complicated. Producers been trying to get Tracy Bennett to come back to the show. She was a stepdaughter of...
No, foster daughter.
Foster daughter of Rita, and...
one of the originals.
Like Jenny, they were both foster daughters, but they'd never been on screen together.
No.
And also, Sharon had been away from the show for 21 years. And when she comes back, Jenny is very suspicious of her because Sharon hadn't seen Rita for a long time. We don't really understand why she's come back, and we know that it's because she's up to no good.
But they properly villainised Sharon because I think that she was a bit of a bad girl in the early 80s.
She's a bit
but
like...
no more than Jenny was.
Yeah, a bit like Jenny.
Because she fancied Brian, didn't she, when he was married to Gail?
Yeah, she comes back with this sob story about... having a tough time. But actually what she's come for is to find Leanne. Because she is the aunt of Harvey Gaskell, who is involved in the County Line story with the drug dealing and all that boring stuff.
It was
and she's trying to get, Leanne to change her testimony. And she's kind of like Harvey's... She's under his thumb. But once she decides to turn on him, she becomes the kingpin of the drug empire.
I don't like that they did that to Sharon.
But what happens with the tasering is that Jenny realises that Sharon's linked to Harvey. There's a point where she's visiting Johnny in the prison, and she walks in, Sharon's coming out while Jenny's going in, and she spins this story about, I'm mentoring a prisoner, and Jenny doesn't believe her at all. She uncovers what's going on. She tells Sharon to leave Rita alone and says, I'm calling the police, and Jenny walks off, and then Sharon just fires this taser at her. Jenny falls to the floor, and then while she's lying there, Sharon buzzes her again and says, have it.
I like how you put
Have
the
it.
H back onto that, because I think it's remembered as Avit rather than have it. I can't remember whether it's been said that Avit was a bit of an ad-libbed in the second tasering.
She didn't need to do the second tasering.
It was so good. It was shot
And her
brilliantly,
expression
wasn't
was
it?
like,
Yeah, she's given this really evil stink eye behind Jenny, because Jenny, you see her
just collapses.
Collapses, and then Sharon's there behind her, and you do not see this coming, because most people don't carry tasers around in their bag, but most people aren't gangster kingpins, are they? And it was so fun to have these two. They kind of like rivals without knowing it, because like you said, that they'd never met each other before. It was almost like they were vying for who is the most, who's the most dominant, who's the alpha foster child of Rita. And they were both kind of, in a way, wanting their money. But Jenny, over the years, had mellowed a lot more, and we'd grown to trust her so much more. But this Sharon came back, and she was kind of like muscling in on Jenny's position as foster daughter number one. And as I said, I didn't like how they turned her into a drugs gangster. I think that was all a little bit silly.
I didn't mind, because I don't really like Sharon.
As much as I love Jenny, it was quite fun to see her coming a cropper at the hands of Sharon and her zapping machine.
I think she's referring to this when she says this, but Sally Ann Matthews tweeted, I tweeted the other day, I was having the campest day I've ever had at work. It is brilliant. Anything between those two, Jenny and Sharon, is such a joy to do. We work really well together. So that was, I think that's a really nice way to cap off, because Jenny as a character, was a really well-rounded Coronation Street character. She could do real high drama, proper pathos and all that stuff. But there's also that camp element, that kind of larger-than-life silliness that happened.
That
the
makes
drunk
an
acting,
iconic Corrie woman.
The telephone wig, being tased. She could do it all.
Yeah. I do love how it's become a meme.
Yeah.
It was a mini meme, wasn't it?
Well, people made T-shirts and things, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone bought a taser because of it, but why not?
Hopefully not. Anyway, that's it, isn't it?
This was a very long.
Well, I think the Gail one was longer. I think the Gail one was closer to 3 hours. But, there's a lot of letters in this alphabet, and there's an awful lot to say about Jenny, who has been a huge, huge favourite character of ours.
It's really funny.
I'm still kind of bereft and thinking, how will the podcast be quite the same again?
It won't be.
Now that Jenny's no longer walking
But we
those
evolve,
cobbles.
don't we? This is the thing. We
Yes.
evolve. And it is sad to move on without somebody that's so important to the show and to Coronation Street.
Yeah, but I'm glad that we could have this episode to bring a bit of closure to it, to reminisce on some of what makes Jenny such a great character, what some of her most brilliant moments were, the relationships, some of the highs, some of the lows, like Leo. This was a very, very out of order, jumpy around the timeline, potted history of Jenny. And I think that it was well worth doing it, even though we character profiled her earlier this year, because it feels a bit different, doesn't it?
I know, and we've spoken for 2.5 hours, but it feels like we've just sketched.
Yeah, there's so much more that we weren't able to mention.
God help you if you don't really know anything about Jenny, because this would have taught you nothing.
This episode was for people who, like us, have an adoration of Jenny, and I hope that we were able to get across what we're going to remember and take on and never forget about this fantastic character, who is still our most voted character of the week in Street Talk as well.
What will happen now?
Yeah, if you didn't watch this, then sorry, you're better off listening to the character profile, because that's
this is uncharted
chronological.
waters we're moving into now, isn't it?
I don't know whether this A to Z format is something that we can do again. Maybe this is twice now. It feels like it's
for icons only.
Do you reckon?
It's such a hard task.
We're going to have to do it for Ken one day, won't we?
Oh, God.
And he's got an awful lot more to fit
Rita.
in, yeah. Anyway, look, that's Jenny. She's gone but not forgotten.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll get a mention again on the programme, and even if she doesn't come back. And good luck, Sally Ann Matthews.
I know.
You turn your hand to in the future.
That's the one good thing about this, is that we might, we're going to see Sal doing something in different projects, because we saw her at the Hope Mill Theatre.
Yeah, we've seen her on stage. Hopefully that won't be the last time.
And she was exceptionally good. So I'm just excited for the future.
The world's an oyster, just like with Jenny.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you were playing along and guessing some of the letters before we got to them. Did we miss anyone or anything major out? Quite possibly. If that's the case, you can always write into us at conversationstreet@gmail.com to let us know. Ta-ra!